There's a logo back there. It took me a second to figure out what it was because I saw it first for the San Antonio Brahmas, which is some sort of bull-horned creature. I don't know what makes it a Brahma. I didn't do the research before just now. Honestly, I'm disappointed in myself. But then I saw the logo on the back of these St. Louis Battlehawks jerseys. And wait a second. They also have like a cow skull kind of logo back there? That makes sense for the Brahmas, but why for the Battlehawks?
I know what it is.
Me too. It took me a second, and then I figured it out because it's on the back of all the jerseys in all the leagues, or of all the teams in the XFL. That is the logo for Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's brand. Or just for him. It's based on the tattoo that he had, then he got covered in a much bigger tattoo. It's just The Rock's logo is back there instead of, you know, your swingman or your MLB logo or whatever. The XFL is making some branding choices. And genuinely, we're not going to spend those 4 hours talking about A.J. McCarron. And I don't know if Kansas City is likely to adopt the St. Louis Battlehawks or if we need to throw our energy behind the different team. I can't remember where Josh Gordon ended up. He ended up on a team. I'll just root for Josh Gordon's team. Is he a Sea Dragon? Beards, will you look up and see where Josh Gordon's at?
Seattle Sea Dragons?
He might be. Now, they went from the Dragons to the Sea Dragons on the reboot, right?
Yeah, they did, but it's fine. Yeah, he is.
There you go. Josh Gordon, Seattle Sea Dragons. I lost
They didn't have a good start.
I lost my team from the first edition of the XFL. I can't remember who. I don't know if they were the Tampa Bay Vipers or if it was Tampa Bay Outlaws or some sort of Arizona Hotshots or...
No, that was the AAF.
I think Hotshots was AAF. I think you're right, Beards. That's Beards McFly, by the way. I'm Joshua Briscoe. Jason Anderson, still out today.
Lifelong Sea Dragons fan over here.
Lifelong Sea Dragons fan, Beards McFly.
Still haven't watched the game.
Well, look, I mean, it's about the passion that you have for that team. Jason is listed as out, illness for today. Hope to have him back in the fold shortly. But in the meantime, it's just Beards McFly and myself, Joshua Briscoe, with you for these next 4 hours. Not just us. We've got a parade of guests that will help elevate our conversations throughout the course of the show today. But let me say this. I didn't think we were going to start here. And maybe it's going to be a little light start here. The XFL was fun. I watched like the second half of the St. Louis San Antonio game. I'm not telling you I sat down and went for XFL Red Zone and just like didn't move off my couch for 7 hours. But I had a little bit of football withdrawal. It was on, and they did some interesting things. So we can talk about that a little bit more later on because there are a couple of things that might be convertible to the NFL and some things that might not make a lot of sense making the transition. But I've got some borderline serious XFL takes that I think could really just continue to feed our football addiction, which is my favorite, I think, of the vices. Is just if I could just get more football all the time. This morning, driving into work here, finally cracked open a pre-draft podcast, listening to Dane Brugler and Daniel Jeremiah and a few of those guys going through some of their top 100s. I mean, the football grind simply never stops, despite the fact that at this time last week, we were sitting down to begin to celebrate the Kansas City Chiefs being world champions once again. The Chiefs tweeted out at some point yesterday, 1 week ago today, and then it was all of some of the celebratory shots from the game and everything. That feels like that happened yesterday and also 10 million years ago. Last week was one of the strangest, time distortion weeks I've ever experienced. It was just it was everything leading up to the Super Bowl. Radio Row, already disorienting. Waiting for the Super Bowl. We get it. The Chiefs win. Celebration. Pandemonium. Valentine's Day sneaks in there. Parade. Parade aftershocks. Friday, looking back on the game one more time. And then Saturday, I did something I haven't done in quite a while. I don't think I've done it since the pandemic, perhaps? I'm trying to remember exactly when my last trip would have been to Allen Fieldhouse. But I was there on Saturday. And it's one of the more bizarre and somehow totally predictable live sporting performances I've ever seen. We'll talk a little more KU coming up at noon with Matt Tait of KUSports.com, the Lawrence Journal World. Obviously, KU-TCU tonight in a huge game because every game in the Big 12 is huge. And then we'll do some NFL talk, both for what the Chiefs are going to have as the new league year is just around the corner. Lots of new league deadlines are already coming up. We'll get through more of those later on as well. We'll talk about that, though, at 11 with Matt Verderame of Fansided. And then Mick Shaffer of KSHB 41 will come in and we'll talk some college ball. We'll maybe do a little NFL. Look, spring training is here. So we have the entire palette of colors to paint with today. But I want to take you back to Allen Fieldhouse with me. Back in time to Saturday. Again, first time back in Allen in a really long time. And the first half begins to unfold. And by unfold, I really mean unravel. KU is down 13 points at halftime, 45-32 at the half. And that was not enough points. Just for how they had played. Not just for Baylor to keep the lead, obviously. We ended up saying that it wasn't enough for them. But it was even more not enough from the pure feeling of where the game had arrived. That felt like worse than a baker's dozen deficit for KU. They just couldn't get anything at all going in their favor. It just felt like there was a lid on the bucket, all the cliches you want, and then there were like 3 different distinct moments where Baylor would hit some sort of circus shot or the 3 and a foul, and you would just go, okay, all right, well, it's just their day. It's just not KU's day. This is going to be kind of a weird one, I guess, but sometimes you get got. And now, because I live in KC-Mo, more often than not when I'm watching KU games, I'm on the Missouri side. So my sportsbook experience is not always as easygoing as it could be for all of you who live on the Kansas side. But in this case, we were in Lawrence. You're in the building at halftime. I felt like I was in the beating heart of KU basketball. You can feel the pulse of Allen Fieldhouse. It sounds cliche and corny, and if you're a K-State or a Mizzou person, and certainly if you're a K-State or Mizzou person that hasn't gone to a game at Allen Fieldhouse, I promise you, I am not like I am not always the biggest proponent of sort of the intangible weirdness of the nostalgia and the mystique of sports, because eventually you got to have the players, you got to run the right stuff, and you got to convert, right? The energy of a building can obviously feed into the game, but I think that's overplayed more often than it's underplayed. Allen Fieldhouse is a borderline inexplicable one for me. I'll see if Matt has any answers for us at noon, but it is a hard thing to explain when every 15-point deficit, as soon as KU cuts it to 13, it feels like it's 5. Because the crowd is basically there to say, hey, the Avalanche is about to start. And it feels like that. And then so you have the opponent on their heels. They got to get that bleep back to 15 now. That has to get extended. You have to stop the rolling of this snow immediately, because if you don't, you're in Avalanche mode. Then even beyond that, when KU ends up, if they get the lead, if they're up by 3, suddenly it feels like 7 or 8. Because it just never feels like you're going to get 2 buckets in a row to try to get that lead back. It is this difficult to define, but somehow very tangible intangible. So I say all of that to also admit something. We got to halftime with KU-Baylor, and I was saying to the people around me, I was saying this feels like a time when I would love to be able to fire up the old DraftKings app and go ahead and see what's going on. Maybe the money line, see what that point number is. And I am not going to do it. And really, I think the point of that for me at the time was this isn't KU just playing some sloppy ball and another team playing fine. An okay Big 12 team, which is already a kind of an oxymoron, right? It's how good this conference has been. But I had both a little bit of doubt in KU's ability to get a can opener for the top of the bucket. And I didn't think Baylor's every circus shot was going to land. But I figured they'd score at least 30 points in the second half. Something magical also happened at halftime that you may or may not be able to directly draw the correlation to the rest of the game. Beards, did you happen to see my posts from what was happening at halftime of KU-Baylor?
I have you blocked on Twitter.
A smart decision. At halftime...
And if you want to block Joshua Briscoe on Twitter, it's at JB Briscoe with an E.
Definitely block JB Briscoe with an E. I have no problem with that. I should have looked up the exact facts of this. Hold on, let me see. I think I've got enough of the details here. Christian and Scooby. It's an acrobat show. They won Germany's Got Talent. Were a finalist in America's Got Talent. They were the halftime duo at Allen Fieldhouse. Stick with me, everybody. So this guy's doing like crazy balancing act stuff. It's really impressive. And then he brings this tiny dog out of this little box. And this tiny little dog also begins doing incredible balancing. I think it's a Chihuahua. It's hard to tell. I could have looked this up earlier. A very small dog that looks like at least mostly Chihuahua. The dog's name is Scooby. They do this whole halftime routine, brings the freaking house down. I mean, just tremendous. This dog is balancing on his feet upside down. The dog's balancing on a basketball. It hops over to another basketball and rolls on that for a little bit. Absolutely electric. The issue was that it was the best performance by anybody in a KU jersey throughout the entirety of the day to that point. So personally, I'm here to tell you that Christian and Scooby saved KU's season. I believe that happened because I found their performance to be absolutely electric. And then the second half started. If you want to give credit to the dog or not, I'm choosing to do that. I'm giving 75% of the credit to the dog, 25% credit to the guy. But if you want to go ahead and include them or not, it's rare for a box score to actually do a half of basketball justice. Just the straight up final score. But as I mentioned, Baylor won the first half 45-32. In the second half of that game, KU won 55-26. And it felt like it. Quick math help for you. KU, little more than doubled them up in the second half. And it felt every bit of that. The comeback out of halftime was immediate. Baylor didn't score for almost 3 minutes. And KU just never stopped. And really with, 3 minutes left, it was 80-67. Baylor got a couple more buckets after that. Again, at that point, the game began transforming into, hey, the bucket's a lot less important than when it leaves your hand in the shot clock. And by the time KU had the lead back, it just felt completely inevitable. And we will talk about this with Matt Tait, but it was something that came up in his story on KUSports.com after the game that I think is such a fun, so much more beneficial way of viewing this. what this game actually was. He wrote a little bit about what Bill Self and Scott Drew said about each other and about each other's teams and how that game went. In an imperfect college basketball landscape, and in an absolutely overwhelming Big 12 conference, those are two teams who could win the whole thing. Now, because the Big 12 is what it is, and because March Madness is what it is, these are also all teams that could win a couple games or lose sooner than you'd think. KU had a super impressive win over Baylor at home, and they're 2-point underdogs right now tonight at TCU. Now, TCU's performance in Allen Fieldhouse earlier this season, certainly relevant there, I'm sure. And also just going on the road in the Big 12 is a difficult thing to do. There is so little space between the top and bottom of this conference. Remember back in Fact or Fiction last week ahead of the KU K-State games, and I just predicted that the Big 12 would happen to K-State and Oklahoma, and OU Lebo in here said, no. This OU team is absolute hot garbo. This is not a concern. If you like KU to win tonight, you like the local team parlay. And OU beats K-State, even though Oklahoma's at the bottom of the conference, and K-State has been a tremendous story this year. I think Lebo, like all of us, can be a little bit more of a pessimist about your own squad, probably, right? I don't mean to put Lebo on blast, but it's just the example that sticks with me because that was just like a total dart throw of like, yeah, I don't know. I also don't think that Oklahoma's better than K-State, but I hardly think that matters because they're all in this same stinking conference where it's like, whose line is it anyway? The rules are made up and the points don't matter. That's the Big 12 right now, but it's just murderer's row. It's tremendous. It's the most fun I've had with we are onboarding at hyperspeed as football is ever so barely in the rear view, even as right now on First Take, their topic at the moment, Bieniemy territory. Commander's name Eric Bieniemy is offensive coordinator, also assistant head coach. We might talk about him some today as well. We are rapidly onboarding here. Is it Mission Impossible? Beards, I have no idea if you've seen the Mission Impossible movies. Is it Mission Impossible where one of the recent ones, Tom Cruise used it might have been a Batman thing too, used the, it's like a balloon anchor or whatever they call it, where you like have a balloon up in the air and then a plane can fly by and just like swoop, or a helicopter can fly by and swoop you up.
I know Dark Knight
from
did that.
Did the Dark Knight do it? Okay. It feels like something Tom Cruise would want to do if he hasn't already.
I think it was Shanghai. That was that scene where he was going to go take the criminal businessman, and he used
perfect.
And he used
yes, it's like what do you remember what they're specifically called? Balloon anchor is the closest thing I can think of, and I keep throwing vertically as if that's gonna help me remember.
I think that's what Batman called it.
Is it really?
I think so.
That's not trademarked. Feels like a missed opportunity.
I don't know if that's what it's technically called, but let's see.
But yeah, that.
No, not the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar shot.
That's what I'm telling you. I feel like Kareem should be suing. I almost said Zack Snyder. Christopher Nolan. Good Lord. No offense to Zack Snyder, but Christopher Nolan series. That's my Batman. Whatever it's called is completely irrelevant. That I feel like is the way though I am getting sucked back into college basketball right now. I tried throwing that balloon up a couple weeks ago, but obviously so much of our brain power has been spent rightfully on the Chiefs. But every time I stick my head out the window to see what's going on in the Big 12 or turn on a KU or a K-State game, it is just another reminder oh yeah, this conference is at full speed right now. And I'm thrilled for what these last few games, 4 games for pretty much everybody now. These last couple weeks of the Big 12 conference season are going to be incredible. The Big 12 tournament's going to be ridiculous. And then how many of these teams are going to be able to get to March Madness, be able to make some noise there? It's just a blast. I am genuinely tickled to see what the Big 12 is going to look like the rest of this way. I think it's going to be a blast. It already has been. But the way that you could view this game, going back to Bill Self and Scott Drew and the real tale of two halves here. I think you'd be doing this game a disservice if you made it about Baylor choking in the second half. Because what I think it was Baylor playing pretty close to its best possible basketball in the first half and pretty close to its worst basketball in the second. And KU doing the exact inverse. KU played just about the worst you're going to see in the first half. And the second half, they were unstoppable. And a snapshot like that in late February to see where these teams are at is just about perfect for my money. Because these teams won't be perfect. There will be long stretches of streakiness. And it's going to be fascinating to see how KU makes that transition from Baylor on Saturday to going to TCU tonight. But however it shakes out, you are watching the best conference in basketball and in an absolutely unhinged environment at Allen on Saturday. You saw each team play one great half of basketball, which I think kind of rules. And if you're a KU fan, the good news is that KU's best half of basketball was better than Baylor's best half of basketball. Because games don't actually get decided one half at a time. So sure, once you get to the T-Mobile Center, once you get to March Madness, you're not playing in the hollowed halls of Allen Fieldhouse. I don't know if all the ghosts and spirits and shaky seats and everything work the same way once you leave that building. I don't think they do quite the same. But it's really interesting to see how that team rallied in the second half against a team that deserves to be discussed in the same breath that they are. The rest of this Big 12 season is going to be incredible. I think there are a few specific takeaways you could take that are a little more in the actual analysis of KU-Baylor. We'll probably do a little bit of that. Plus, I do legitimately have some XFL takes. I do want to start looking ahead to a few Chiefs offseason things because I think that as those come through, they're going to be really interesting and also not nearly as far away as you might think in terms of what the schedule breaks down with. So we'll spin the wheel and decide which topic we want to talk about on the other side of this timeout. But we'll go NFL with Matt Verderame at 11, more KU, and looking ahead to TCU a little bit with Matt Tait at noon, and then Mick Shaffer will join us at 1 o'clock for a little Learn Funniest Best and everything else going on around Kansas City sports. I'm Joshua Briscoe, Beards McFly, and they're on the other side of the glass. It's The Zone here on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. The Zone with Jason Anderson
Steve McCarluke?
on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
No Jason Anderson. It's The Zone without Jason Anderson today. Hoping to have him back tomorrow, sometime soon, though. He just kept texting us. He said, I'm sick. And I was like, tight, dude. Congrats. He's like, no, I'm ill. I was like, awesome. So I don't know what he's doing today, but it sounds like he's having a great time. Joshua Briscoe and Beards McFly. And yeah, if you also let out a long sigh after those, at least you can feel better about the fact that I don't feel good about my own standing making that joke. I do feel good about what we saw over the weekend. Not just KU, by the way. I admittedly didn't get to watch as much of the K-State Iowa State game as I otherwise would have liked to, since we were out there in Allen Fieldhouse. But coming back from a deficit in their own right to get that win over Iowa State. Obviously, Mizzou not so lucky at home, but the 31-23 first half deficit, KU comes roaring back, and it's just another example where I don't think anything from this Big 12 conference should be able to surprise you anymore, which is sort of a hilarious, wonderful place to be in the best basketball conference in the world, without any doubt about it. At least most, competitive. Best conference in college ball, if you want to be super pedantic about it. There are a couple little things from, again, both being there and seeing the guys that kind of spark the energy, turn the tides, whatever it may be. And we've talked about Jalen Wilson plenty on this show over the last, over the course of this season, really, where he has established himself as being the guy in the sort of, his name's been brought up multiple times. I don't know if this is fair or unfair at this point, but wanted to be the Ochai Agbaji of this year's team, where the one more year at Kansas gives you the fine-tuning, the evolution, the next stages of your game that allow you to be a more complete player that puts you in those National Player of the Year conversations. Now, Jalen Wilson at this point is obviously the engine of where this team resides, right? We've seen answers to this at some points. We've also seen KU fall short at some points this year, as is the case with really, really, really difficult games and an outrageously good conference. If I've mentioned that yet today, that the Big 12 was pretty good. But I think we have seen pretty clearly that KU is in a different place. This might be super obvious, but KU is in a different place when it's Jalen Wilson and somebody else, or when it's just the Jalen Wilson show. For as excellent as he is, you can't ask him to do everything on his own. And in a game like we saw on Saturday, when KJ Adams and Grady Dick both end up in the high teens, that is a excellent indicator of where your team is headed. But DeJuan Harris, so often to me, feels like the guy, if I can check his temperature, I'm going to have an idea of where the rest of the game is going to be trending, or at least what's going to come easy and what's going to be difficult. And maybe some of this is even springboarded on the conversations we've had about DeJuan Harris in the past, but when he just even looks comfortable shooting, everything opens up. Everything is less congested. KU's options are open again, and you have to defend Kansas differently. We know he can be a distributor, and that Bill Self is right to trust him with the basketball. But against Baylor, he ends up 2 for 2 from his three-point shot, and when a DeJuan Harris 3 falls, it feels like rain in the desert, right? It's like, oh yeah, here it is. That finally the downpour begins. But he was willing to go to the basket, to create some of his own looks, to be a guy that does not have to be your primary scorer, should not be your primary scorer. But that has to be an element of what he does in this offense. And I really do think that there's a correlation there between DeJuan Harris demanding a little bit of attention and making life easier for the guys around him as well. That was the book coming in, right? It's just like, hey, man, leave him over there and dare him to shoot. And if he shoots and he hits one every once in a while, so be it. But we're not going to let him stress us out if he's got a little bit of space. Because out there, it's just not going to be his shot. I think that is going to be such an enormous, enormous storyline going into the tournament and figuring out, look, obviously, again, Jalen Wilson is the centerpiece of this team. When you let Grady Dick catch and shoot, he can be as deadly as anybody in the nation, and you also can have a game like you did on Saturday where he's 6 of 18 from the field, 2 of 9 from 3, and you're not unhappy with his performance. Because he brings you a few boards, he gets you a handful of points, and especially in a game that was as streaky as that, the full game stat lines that I'm giving you now are honestly, just so everyone's getting the same numbers out here, the end of game stat lines reflecting on the first and second half combined are telling you kind of a distorted story because there was such a outrageous difference from how this game felt in the first half and the second half. And and Beards, if you end up wanting to chime in on this particular hot button issue, either I feel like you've had DeJuan Harris takes in the past, and if you've got any of those clanking around in there, you can let me know.
I don't know if I had like super hot DeJuan Harris takes.
They might not have been super hot. I don't know. But this one I figure also we could probably roll around with for a second because the concept of momentum is a bit of a challenging one for me. Because on some level, whenever you see a string of good things happening, you believe that thing is going to continue. But more importantly, just getting a string of good things to happen, that in and of itself, that is the result you're looking for. And especially in something like football, where like you have so many factors going into it. Momentum, in air quotes, I don't mean getting a defense gassed and then keeping the foot on the gas. That's a real, that's a strategy. You're taking advantage of what the defense is giving you there. But, we just wanted to kick the field goal and keep momentum. In fact, Hines Ward's San Antonio Brahmas in the XFL yesterday, they took a field goal because they wanted to just get some points on the board. And then later on, they could have used those extra points if they would have gone for it on fourth down, got for the touchdown. That's right. You're getting XFL fourth down Discord on the show. Discord
about his
today.
job in game 1, man.
I know. He should be. He looks so happy. The Hines Ward smile, you saw that for so many years under the face mask, He would just get his head knocked off and he'd pop up smiling. Same smile. Just now he's wearing a hat instead of a helmet. Even still with a team with Steelers colors. It was perfect. But like this sort of stringing together positive field goal drives for momentum, that's where I kind of roll my eyes a little bit. Like, you want to have good morale and you want to be taking advantage of your moments, but defining momentum is hard. To bring it back to my KU specific point here, I don't think it's momentum as much as it is the fact that basketball and obviously in college ball in particular, it's a game of runs, right? Like when you do feel like you can take the game over and your shots are falling and theirs aren't, I don't know if that's always directly sourceable to a given moment. I don't know if that's directly sourceable to a strategy. I don't know if that ends up just being good coaching and good execution coming together where now you are piling on small victories while the other team is just running into a small pile of big L's. But that's one thing where for all of my confusion of this amorphous thing called momentum, and I'm not saying does it exist, I'm saying how much does it matter and how do you measure it, right? Like, it's just, I don't have like a big take that I'm trying to work towards or that I'm trying to argue for anybody to say, momentum's not real, and if you think momentum's real, you're a dope. There is something to the energy of a game and how it affects the human beings who play the game. I think sometimes the word momentum gets overused. Again, not really the point here. That's mostly something I've looked into more in football. And I've already talked about Allen Fieldhouse. For all of the non-KU fans listening, I'm done talking about the magic of this old building that just seems to have something going on in it that I can't fully put my finger on. But it is amazing. It just is. I'm sorry. If you played Sandstorm in Manhattan again, I would also say that you've got some special magic whenever you hit, but you got to start playing Sandstorm again. I don't know what to tell you. But I do think that once we even out of Allen Fieldhouse, T-Mobile Center, down to March Madness, when you believe that KU is a team that can string together baskets, and I don't just mean raining threes because I'm not sure exactly how many of these guys you're comfortable having shoot all the time, but if DeJuan Harris gets left open in the corner and he is willing and able to just go ahead and hit that shot, you get a good, I'm going to make sure I don't want to create cuts for Friday on a Monday. It's too early on. You get 5 good minutes of Grady, where he is getting to the basket every once in a while, but more importantly, he is able to be that sharp shooting threat from the outside. And then that's all piled on around Jalen Wilson, demanding the gravity of the defense, being the centerpiece of all of that. I do think Kansas, and we just maybe it's just because I saw it with my own eyes and it was electric. But I do think Kansas is very well equipped to be a team that can erase deficits or create large leads of their own a whole lot quicker than they should be able to. A whole lot quicker than you'd expect them to be able to. And that's one of those things that I think ends up being so important come tournament time, where if you're down by 12 at the half, it doesn't you're not hanging your head in the locker room thinking about what your next month's going to be like when you got to go back to campus and start looking ahead to next year or figuring out if it's draft time for you or whatever's going on there. This is a team that's going to have these experiences under their belt, and I think clearly has a skill set to maximize on them when they do end up in those positions again. It's just a fun team. And looking ahead to TCU tonight will also be a blast to see if you can get another one of those games where DeJuan Harris looks like a legitimate scoring threat, where he's not afraid to shoot, where KU's not afraid to let him be the guy who shoots. What happens if it's not all running through Jalen Wilson? Got to the line 10 times against Baylor, 9 of 10 from the free throw line. Finding those points when they're given to him. It'll be really, really interesting to see what happens when they take this show on the road and to see if that pokes any holes in my newfound extra perspective on where this team stands after Saturday's game in Allen Fieldhouse against Baylor. We'll take another quick timeout here in the zone. Matt Verderame of Fansided will join us here in about 10 or 15 minutes to look ahead to the NFL offseason and some fun topics there. What are we going to talk about when we come back? I don't know. Beard said he watched like a quarter of the All-Star game, like half of the All-Star game. You watched a little bit.
A quarter.
You watched some of the All-Star game.
Draft.
I've got I've got a light dunk contest take. We'll see if we make room for any of that coming up next here in the zone.
Follow the show on Twitter at J810Anderson, at JB Briscoe, at Beards McFly, and at Sports Radio 810. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
You know what makes me nervous about today's show?
Where do we begin?
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
It is The Zone. It is not Jason Anderson with you today. Josh Briscoe and Beards are with you. Jason back soon. Beards, when I've asked you about the NBA, Beards is a resident NBA guy. I can only hope to hold a candle to Beards' NBA knowledge. I've got a dunk contest take.
Okay.
But we can get there. I want to know, every time I ask you about the All-Star game, you keep mentioning the draft itself. And I want to know what it is that you're picking at there, because I have not pre-screened this take from you. I do not know where you're going or what you saw in the draft selection that was so interesting.
So they've done the last few years. I think this is like year 5 of doing this.
Has it really been 5 years?
I think it has been.
I think you might be right.
Where,
wow.
There's the 2 captains from each conference, East and the West, and then they pick their teams.
Right.
The first year or so they did it, they just kind of released the list and said, this is what happened.
Okay.
And then they started doing it where they had like that pre-recorded live thing.
Yeah.
Like a week before, like a couple days beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
And then this year they finally decided to do it live on the court in front of everybody.
Got it. Okay.
Everybody has been clamoring for them to do this since the beginning of them doing this.
Right.
I have a sneaky suspicion, though, that it might have already happened beforehand and they were just doing it back live.
Okay. That they had some final selections made already.
Some notes, and they were just reading off their notes.
Diabolical.
This might just be nitpicky, but they had like this big stage set up, and they had like 2 little charity groups on each side.
Mm-hmm.
And what they would do is they'd say, I picked whoever.
2 little charity groups, so it's like the Rockets, and then what else? Sorry, go ahead. Little NBA joke for Beards.
That's good.
Thank you.
The player would get up, go over to the side, and they'd have a jersey with their name on it, pose with a picture for the kid.
Sure.
Move on. They had all those made like beforehand.
Yeah,
and they were just kind of out.
Unless there are also jerseys of all of them on other sides, but we never saw those.
But also, so what they did is, because they didn't want to have somebody picked last, like they didn't want to have the last pick.
Yes.
They had them pick the reserves first and then do the starters afterwards.
I knew this was happening. How did that go?
Giannis, either he read his script wrong.
Oh no.
Or he made a goof. He tried to pick Ja Morant as a reserve. Ja's a starter.
Sure.
He then ended up with Ja later.
Curious.
What's going on in Salt Lake? But other than that, it was a fun time. It was enjoyable to watch. Jokic didn't want to get picked last as the starter, so he just walked over to LeBron's team before LeBron started talking.
That's funny. Did he know he was the last pick at that point?
It was between him and Lauri Markkanen. So Jokic was just like, I'm not getting picked last, and just walked over.
He wasn't going to get picked last under Lauri Markkanen, was he? Because I know Rudy Salazar is not here to defend himself, but the disrespect for Nikola Jokic, unbelievable. What did you think of however much of the game you saw? I saw that it scored a bajillion points. People were complaining about there being no defense. That's too bad. I didn't even know that.
They cared less this year than they have previously. Usually those things have been really good with like the Elam ending and everything. But
oh yeah, was that a part of it again this year?
Yes.
And that
has been.
But it still was not particularly compelling television.
There was less defense played this year than the past. In the one quarter I watched.
Does that honestly? Like, I'm interviewing Beards, but you're also the biggest NBA nerd I could get on short notice. Does that matter to you, or like, do you want what are you watching the All-Star game for as a big NBA fan that tunes in for a little bit of it?
Just fun, really. Like people making crazy shots, doing some fun dunks. I like a little bit of caring. There was one a couple years ago where I think it was the one where they tried to get Anthony Davis the record for points in the game, and it was literally just, all right, give the ball to Davis, he's going to go dunk it now. And that was literally it.
Yeah, that's no good.
So better than that.
Was it fun? Can it be fun if they don't seem to care that much? I guess maybe that's my final question.
Last year was nice because they had like Steph Curry go bananas and then Damian Lillard also went bananas from just shooting the ball so much.
Yeah.
And making everything crazy. There wasn't really, from what I saw, it wasn't really that as much this year, but
it was
still entertaining.
Sorry for making you talk about the dunk contest and the All-Star game and everything while in the segment where you actively have to do things to make sure the segment ends when it's supposed to.
That's okay.
That's bad producing by me.
That's fine.
I'll say my dunk contest take that's sort of just a stolen take from Bomani Jones, which, if I had to admit that every time I did that, I'd cannibalize most of my own talking time. I think if it seems like the guys want to be there and are willing to do some fun, just like crazy alien superhuman bleep, that's good enough for me.
Also,
But
Giannis didn't play this year, and usually he's the tryhard guy.
so that's the thing, is if you could get a little bit more, I don't know if you can really do anything in terms of incentivizing playing a little bit more defense. I don't need all the tightest fundamentals in the sport, but a little bit of, like you said, caring probably amplifies the fun, which I actually think is why they did the dunk contest might change some things in the future. We'll talk about that later, but Matt Verderame is next.
Hey, kid. You're in the zone
As you're eating it, you're sobbing because you know you're ashamed of yourself.
with Jason Anderson.
But then afterwards, like the complete and utter shame sets in. So I had to leave it off because at 31 years old, I can't go somewhere and eat and just start crying in my roast beef and cheddar because I know I'm disgusting.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Rolling on in the zone here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Joshua Briscoe and Beards McFly with Jason Anderson today. Hope to have him back off the injury report shortly. Joined now by our friend from Fansided, the Stack in the Box podcast, the Arrowhead Addict podcast, all across the Fansided world, and really you're just likely to find him in your local Arby's if you walk in at the right time of day. Matt Verderame, you can follow him on Twitter at Matt Verderame as well. Matt, the Super Bowl is over, and we're a full, few hours away from the NFL having new deadlines to start landing. I mean, hope you had some time to catch your breath, excuse me. Well, that's going to get in the cuts. Catch your breath and maybe grab a sandwich.
Yeah, I just ate a sandwich actually right before I came on. It's kind of like a late breakfast, early lunch kind of thing. I got both kiddos at home, and the one's taking a nap. So this was it. This is the only time I was going to eat for about 6 o'clock tonight.
What was the strategy there? What kind of brunch sandwich you have?
I am the most boring person alive when it comes to this. I eat the exact same thing pretty much every single day when I'm at home. And I had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I had a protein shake, and that is pretty much it. That is, if you were to line up 100 days of me at the house, that I'm probably eating that 99 times around noon. So I mean that's it. It might kill me. I don't know. I'm waiting for the whole report when they come out and it's terrible for you, peanut butter. Which that'll be the end of me.
That I'll tell you what, you and I are both going down that same blaze of glory there. If peanut butter is bad for us, I will see you in hell.
That's fine. Yeah, I figure it's supposedly people are saying, it's a healthy fat as long as you work out and all that stuff. Like, all right, well, I'll take care of that end of it. But I am fully waiting for the Consumer Report to come out with peanut butter all recalled. It's going to kill you. But, something will, I guess. Anyway,
I hope that's many, many, many years away because I'm looking forward to eating a lot more peanut butter. Crunchy or smooth, and then what kind of jelly? And then I can ask you about some football things.
It's smooth. Crunchy is for people who are deranged. And jelly, I couldn't even tell you. Grape, I don't know. It's great, but I know that much. But and not a lot of jelly either. I can't eat people who have these peanut butter jellies. The jellies are pouring off of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're an adult for God's sake. Put it up for a taste. If you're gonna load up, put peanut butter on it. You're gonna end up wearing it. So just a little grape jelly. We're good to go.
I'm okay with that. I like a crunchy peanut butter. I like all peanut butter. I'm a peanut butter lover, not a fighter. But I'm at least with you on the jelly. Just get it into the holes of the bread there a little bit. We don't need to have a big sloppy mess. We're grown-ups here eating our PB&J.
Yes, I mean if when you're like 10 years old, if you go out somewhere and you have a stain on your shirt because you can't eat yet, like a person,
sure.
Everybody's like, oh, that's fine, that's funny. You're 35 and do that.
Yeah,
it's like
bad luck.
Yeah, you know what? It's not good. It's not good. That person probably needs help through their day because they either can't dress themselves or they can't eat like a person. So yeah, you don't want to do it.
Some people just need to live their life with a bib, and if that's you, just go ahead and get a bib that says, I'm a big sloppy mess and I can't take care of myself, and we get you a bib and everything's gonna be fine.
I'll tell you, a bib with that on it. If you had that slogan on it, they should hand that out to every kid at college.
Yes, you should have to wear that until you turn what,
I'm
23?
a big sloppy mess and I can't take care of myself. Yeah, I mean,
you should have to
only
graduate.
time of your life when it's completely acceptable to just be a complete disaster.
Yeah.
Every second of the day. Like, is he inebriated and it's 2 o'clock on a Wednesday? Well, he's a student. Oh, okay. Any other point in your life, right? Like you're immediately being told by your family to seek some kind of attention.
Yes.
But when you're in college, it's fine if it's Wednesday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You're just hammering down a Coors Light. People are like, that's all right. It's in college. What else is supposed to do?
I've got one other nominee for you because of something that was very specifically happening Wednesday afternoon last week, where Coors Lights were being slammed.
Aggressively.
There were beers everywhere. Did you see or hear anything out of the Super Bowl celebration for the Chiefs? You don't have to go all the way back into the nitty-gritty of the game, but anything from last week's storylines that caught your eye that properly celebrated the Chiefs' second Super Bowl title of this era?
I don't want to say the name because I want to make sure I'm right. And if you know that I'm right, shout this out. But was there not one player who was in like a wheelchair at the parade?
Jalen Watson. Jalen Watson was in a wheelchair at the end. It was perfect.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like that. Hey, you know what? Going nuts. I saw that and was like, I'm not sure if that's legitimate or not, so I didn't like comment on it. But yeah, no. Hey, listen. It was funny watching it. I was watching on television, and they were like bleeping out like half the words. So I didn't think and then at one point, Travis Kelce was just making a noise that they were bleeping out. So they went back and saw the unbleep version of. It's just like, okay. I know this. If you're a Chiefs fan, you're going to love the offseason. They're going to be everywhere. And if you don't like the Chiefs, God, you're going to hate them because you can't get away from them. You turn on SNL in 2 weeks, and Travis Kelce's hosting it.
It's unreal.
And I would like to posit a guess that Mahomes will make some kind of a guest appearance. Mm-hmm. Just kind of feels like that's almost predestined to happen. Mm-hmm. The only way that's funnier is if somehow like Andy Reid also makes a guest appearance.
Oh,
but
man.
That I can't picture. I don't think he would do it, but it would be incredible.
Yeah, I think the odds are I think Mahomes is probably there. Seems like Jason's either going to be there or someone else will be playing Jason Kelce. Mama Kelsey's making an appearance, maybe in some form or fashion. Yeah. Andy Reid's a longer shot, but I do think we got to put it out into the universe.
Would NBC allow Frank Clark or Chris Jones to be there? Like just from sheer terror that it's live.
Yeah.
And they've seen Frank Clark's post-game interviews? I
think Frank Clark, they'd have to say, Frank, you're welcome to join us, but it's going to have to be in one of the taped sketches.
Yeah. That'd probably be the smart way to go.
I think.
I feel like you could trust Chris Jones. I feel like Frank Clark, anything's on the table.
Yeah. Literally anything might be on the literal table. It's impossible to say.
I will say, tweeted out. God, it must have been a couple. I think it was actually the night it came out with Fallon, where he said he was going to be on SNL. Mm-hmm. If they don't have Kelce playing the Cincinnati mayor, it's a complete failure. They have to have some sketch where Travis Kelce is forced to be the Cincinnati mayor.
You're so right.
That's been a storyline for a month now. You got to capitalize.
Oh man! And the mayor of Cincy might have thought he finally got out of the line of fire. The Chiefs won the Super Bowl. It's all. No, you're right. He is getting dunked on SNL. That's gonna be an interesting one to come back from for the career of a politician, is being a villain in an SNL sketch.
It's funny because no one in Cincinnati will care about any of that stuff, but many people, when they have to vote for the next mayor, will look at his name in Cincinnati and go, he cost us the AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
Really didn't, but that's what people will always remember him for that are Bengals fans. But that guy got the Chiefs riled up to the hilt for that game. So congratulations. Good for him.
Whoever's running against him, just call him Mayor Jabroni for the entire debate cycle, and I think you're all of a sudden you're an elected official. I feel like that one would be amazing. I feel like that one would work. I want to ask you about football that was played this weekend. I have no idea how much, if any, of the XFL that you watched. We haven't gotten super deep into it yet, but the fourth down onside kick alternative, the alternatives to going for 1, 2, and 3 points. I think there are different elements of it that could make sense to the NFL level, and some that could be kind of a stretch. But of the half of a game I watched the end of the second half of the Battlehawks Brahmas game. And
awesome.
I enjoyed it. So it sounds like you did too.
No, I'm completely kidding. I didn't watch 1 second.
No. I had
Briscoe,
fun. It was football.
Kind of. Look, I've spent the last 7 months doing nothing but watching football, talking about football, breaking down. And let me say, I am happy to do it.
Sure.
I can't believe that I'm paid a salary to do it. Okay, so I'm not complaining. But by the time the Super Bowl's over, I'm like, I need 2 weeks face down.
Yeah.
Like because I go to the Senior Bowl in Mobile.
Yeah.
I come back for 2 days, 2.5 days, and then I'm off to the Super Bowl. I know there are people out there listening. Oh, it's a real tough life. Look, I'm not complaining, but by the time I get back, I've been down in Phoenix for 8 days. It is a lot of work.
Yes.
And I'm ready to lay down. Then I got the combine next week. I'll be leaving literally this time next week for Indianapolis. And so, yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot going on. That said, I know what the rules are, and I know the rule changes and everything else, and the alterations. I think the 3-point play is kind of gimmicky.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't get into that, but I do like the idea of like 4th and 15 instead of an onside kick.
Me too.
Because it's basically impossible now to get an onside kick with the rule changes. And so, look, play it out. 4th and 15, you get one shot at it, and it's not easy, but it's reasonable. That being said, if you're the Chiefs, my God, you can't vote for that fast enough.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
Right? Like, would you just go for it every time?
Yeah, that was.
What are the odds that they complete that? 50%? 40%? I mean, I take a shot.
It would change the game. It was when I saw last night or yesterday, whenever that game was. The confines in the XFL rule is like I think it's only available to you if you're trailing in the fourth quarter or something like that, which feels like the preemptive Mahomes clause. Like that's just so if you have Patrick Mahomes, you can't do it to open the game.
That's interesting. It's probably a smart way to go about it through the XFL because you could have a situation where it gets ridiculous.
Yeah. But it kept that game interesting longer. It was kind of fun.
Here'd be something that would be fascinating. Let's say the NFL puts that in, and they're like, okay, look, same deal. Like you can only use it in the fourth quarter if you're trailing. Chiefs score, they're down 7, they score, they get to within 1. Do they just say we're going to go for 2 because either you take the lead or you don't get the lead? And then you have an opportunity to put the ball back in his hands instead of putting the defense on the field for the final 2 minutes of the game.
I like that. And that was the other thing with like.
Would the Chiefs just intentionally, but we don't care.
Yeah. Who cares?
We always want to get 4th and 15, or we take the lead one way or the other.
Yeah, 4th and 15 conversion from the 25-yard line, fourth quarter only. And I was gonna see if I could find the exact like rule book layout because at that point, sure, being down 1, you either take the lead with the ball, or you get a chance to do it again later on your onside 4th and 15 play. I think there could be some fun sort of game management things like that. But I also don't begrudge anybody who wanted a little bit of a chance to nurse the football hangover for a couple weeks. I don't blame you. Yeah, I mean, I went out to dinner with my wife, and then we went out for a nightcap, and there was at the place we were at, the pub we were at, there was a TV up on top, and I did see. Just kind of in passing, it was like Houston was playing. I don't know who they were playing, but I know Wade Phillips is coaching Houston. I know they won, and the other team, I for the life, I can't remember who it was. Paxton Lynch got benched for them. Yeah, yeah. And I was sitting there thinking to myself, like, the Chiefs and Cowboys actively tried to trade up to draft Paxton Lynch. I know.
Failed, and then the following year, Kansas City took Patrick Mahomes. Amazing. Like, that is one of these days, my journalistic career, that's going to be one of the pinnacles. Like, I'm going to talk to everybody involved and write an oral history of that. And I'm not sure that John Elway is going to be excited to participate in that one. But just like, can you imagine what the world looks like if the Chiefs had successfully traded up and drafted Paxton Lynch?
I don't want to.
I mean, it's right. I'll tell you what, there would be no Coors Light shortage in Kansas City from last Wednesday.
No.
No. And then, ironically, who does Mahomes start his first game against in his career? Paxton Lynch.
Unreal.
Well, it's just a crazy thing. Like, when you really think about that, like, just all the sliding doors that could have gone, like, ain't going to happen. Or, heck, the Chiefs drafted Mahomes 10th. Do you know who drafted right ahead of them that year?
Were the Broncos right up there?
No, it was the Bengals who took John Ross.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that John Ross pick, yeah.
Who now is in the Chiefs, oddly enough.
Yes.
But they took John Ross, and it wasn't like they were in a spot where you're like, well, they'd never take a quarterback. Like, they had the end stages of Andy Dalton.
Yep.
Like, they could have, and, of course, instead they took Burrow a few years later, and that's worked out. And then who did the Chiefs acquire the pick from? The Bills.
Yep.
It's
unreal.
It's what? Nah, listen, the Bills and the Bengals, it's worked out. They have great quarterbacks. But it's just funny, like when you really stop and think about all those teams that could have taken him, and none of them did. And so it's just, hey, that's the way it goes. I mean, Joe Montana was a third-round pick. Everybody could have taken him 2.5 times over.
But sometimes the trades you don't make, God, you can't give up on the Paxton Lynch experiment after 1 year to go get this kid out of Texas Tech. You got to give Paxton a shot. Boy,
right.
I'm glad that's not the timeline that we're in. Speaking of guys changing teams and very much related with the Chiefs here, what did you make of the end result here for Eric Bieniemy, where he officially this weekend, or late Friday afternoon, he officially signed on as the offensive coordinator and assistant head coach for the Washington Commanders. Right. What did you make of that being kind of the end of the Eric Bieniemy saga here, at least, as he looks to continue his career in Washington and then eventually as a head coach somewhere? What went into that?
So for the Chiefs side of it, I mean, look, I think everybody expects Matt Nagy is going to become the offensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. And what's really interesting is who's going to replace him as the quarterbacks coach, because that might be the best job in the NFL.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, to borrow the line from Sam Weiss, the former Bengals head coach, who used to be the quarterbacks coach for Joe Montana in San Francisco, you fold your arms, you take 2 big steps back. That's how you become a great coach. Like that, you just stand there. So that'll be interesting to see how they backfill the QB coach spot, assuming Nagy elevates. And then there was a report, I think it was Aaron Wilson of Pro Football Network, who said that essentially Nagy would be the head coach in waiting. Now, I always look, nothing against Aaron Wilson, does a great job. I always kind of hesitate with stuff like that. A lot of things can change year to year.
Yeah.
Like if they go out and score 35 points a game and win another Super Bowl, Matt Nagy's going to have offers.
Yeah.
Is he going to stick around? Is he going to wait? Maybe he would. Maybe he's just screw it. I'll wait for Andy to retire. But Andy's 64 years old. What if Andy Reid decides to coach for 6 or 7 more years?
Yep.
Then what?
Yep.
So I think for Kansas City, look, Nagy will elevate and they'll backfill. Now, as far as the enemy goes, I mean, look, we've talked about this. I think it's really unfair that he's got to go do this. Nagy left, Peterson left. None of those guys called the plays. They got head coaching jobs. Bieniemy, look, is there something to the idea that he doesn't interview well? Maybe with some teams. He's obviously a very strong personality. For some teams, that's a good thing. For some, it's not. But I think he deserves a shot. I think he's deserved a shot for years. Now, he's going to Washington because he looks at this and says, if I can go there with a defensive-minded head coach, I'm going to get full control of the offense. It's my baby. And if I can elevate that group with Sam Howell and Terry McLaurin and so on and so forth, nobody can sit there and say, well, it's not because of you, it's because of Andy Reid. Right. The downside of that is that I fear for him is you're going to a place that Sam Howell is your quarterback. Mm-hmm. And if that doesn't go well, people are going to say, well, look at that. The Chiefs are still scoring 30 points a game, and Washington's offense isn't good, and therefore it was all justified if Bieniemy didn't get a head coaching gig, and I think that's nonsense. But I think that's going to be the reality of Washington's not really good offensively. And so he's taking a big risk, but I applaud Bieniemy for betting on himself.
Do you think that if he does see success there, is that going to be a 1 year or 2 year stop before he's getting actual head coaching opportunities for real this time? And also, do you think that Sam Howell is legitimately who they are planning on going in the 2023 with?
I think right now he is, yeah, because they're not going back to Wentz, I'll tell you that much, and they're not. Heineke is a free agent. I don't know that you're overly excited about bringing him back. Like, at that point, don't you just put Sam Howell out there and say, well, let's see what we've got now?
Yeah.
Could you draft a guy? Maybe. They're drafted in the middle of the first round. It's possible. Do you go out and you try to sign somebody? Maybe. But, yeah, I think Howell right now is the guy you look at. And as far as Bieniemy, I don't know. I'd love to say, yeah, if they perform well and they're a playoff team, they're good offensively, that he's going to get a gig. But he hasn't gotten one yet. And he's literally interviewed with half the teams in the NFL. Yep. So it's hard to sit here and say, yeah, I think he's going to get a job. I don't at this juncture. I don't think he's going to get a job. I think he deserves one. I think he deserved one 3, 4, 5 years ago. But I think that of all the coaches in recent memory, nobody has been cast aside more than Eric Bieniemy. You hear these people a lot and say, well, he doesn't interview well. Okay, I'm not even here to argue that. Like, you know what, maybe he doesn't interview well. for whatever the reason. Maybe it's either he's just somebody who's really intense, and that's off-putting to some people. Maybe he comes in, it's kind of a, listen, we're going to do this my way, and a lot of owners, they don't want somebody to come in and do it their way. They want somebody to come in and do it the owner's way. There's a reason that for months, or for a month, Irsay wanted to hire Jeff Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Because he can control Jeff Saturday. So there's always elements to this. I hope the enemy gets a job, but I have no idea if he ever will.
What about the rest of the quarterbacks? Talking to Matt Verderame of Fanside at Stacking the Box. You follow him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. The quarterback carousel is Aaron Rodgers may or may not be in a dark cave right now. Derek Carr is free to do what he sees fit. That saga ends in kind of a bizarre but somewhat predictable way there in Vegas. Are there any of those relationships that you see making a lot of sense? Are there any teams that you feel like are genuinely a quarterback away that ought to be in one of the Rodgers or Carr or Jimmy G or Jameis Winston sweepstakes? Not even to mention Lamar Jackson, which obviously is still up in the air too.
Yeah, so I actually wrote about this morning over Fanside for my column because it's middle of February and what else you're going to write about.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of just wrote, as a thought exercise, let's play the game. So, all right, if Carr's visiting with the Jets right now, he visited before the Saints before he got released. Rodgers at some point is going to emerge from this panic room that he's in with no lights. And if anybody tells you they know what he's thinking, they're a liar. Anything's possible. He could come out of there and say he's going to go play basketball, and I believe it. I don't think it matters what he thinks because I think the Packers are done with him. I think the Packers are ready to trade him and move on and be done with this. Jordan Love is entering the fourth year of his rookie deal. They need to find out what they have in him, and I don't think they can win a Super Bowl anymore with Rodgers because they can't because their roster's not good enough. So, and they'll move him while he still has value. Now, the two teams that are the obvious leaders in the clubhouse right now are the Jets and the Raiders. Carr's not going back to the Raiders. You can scratch that off. The Jets are the pivot point here. Do the Jets, who could sign Carr right now, anybody can, he's a free agent, do you sign him now and say we're not going to wait for Rodgers to come out of the panic room? Or do you wait and say, okay, we hope that Aaron Rodgers is going to want to come here and we'll outbid the Raiders for him and so on and so forth? If Rodgers goes to the Raiders, and I think it makes all the sense in the world that Carr goes to the Jets. It gets really interesting, though, if Rodgers goes to the Jets, because then I think Jimmy G probably goes to the Raiders. I mean, who knows him better than McDaniels? So, and by the way, there's also a world where Jimmy G, if Carr decides to go to the NFC South, Jimmy G also has a lot of ties to the Jets. So I think for all those guys, I mean, Carr I'm looking at and saying, all right, the Jets, maybe Panthers, Saints. For Rodgers, I think it's Jets or Raiders. Maybe a mystery team emerges. That's always possible with this stuff. Then you look at Garoppolo. Jets and Raiders make a ton of sense. I mean, he's got ties with both of them because of the coaching staffs. And then Jackson, look, I threw this out earlier, and I threw this out not as a report, but just kind of walking through it mentally. If Lamar Jackson, if that thing doesn't go well in Baltimore, for whatever the reason, they tag him, they can't find a deal, whatever. The Atlanta Falcons, to me, make all the sense in the world.
Ton of sense.
They're in the NFC. They have a top 10 pick. Arthur Blank is an owner who will spend money. They're one of the few franchises in the NFL that, they actually have to think about selling tickets. So you have all those things going, not to mention that Jackson played at Louisville, which is 6 hours away from Atlanta. And who's the most famous and most revered athlete? I don't know if revered is the right word, but most electrifying athlete in Atlanta's history for the Falcons is Michael Vick.
Yep.
Well, Lamar Jackson is like a souped-up version of Michael Vick. And on top of that, they play a system that fits perfectly with how Lamar Jackson played with Arthur Smith as the head coach. So is that it's a done deal? No, I mean, half the league would be interested if Lamar Jackson's on the block. But I think Atlanta, who, by the way, was all in for Deshaun Watson and just didn't get him.
Right.
All in. Let me tell you right now, Desmond Ridder is not going to be the reason the Falcons don't get Lamar Jackson. They try to do it.
Yep. So
I would watch Atlanta. Atlanta, to me, there's a lot of boxes checked with Atlanta if Jackson ends up on the market.
I think that makes all the sense in the world. I don't know. I guess I would probably still bet on it on Baltimore getting it figured it out because I just don't.
Sure.
I don't know that overhauling your franchise there because you can't figure your things out with your franchise quarterback makes sense. But it's been weird though. That was a weird way to end the season for them.
You know what? The other part of it's this. I agree with your premise. If Baltimore, I think, would pay him just about whatever he wants. The problem is Baltimore has been very, very cautious in terms of guaranteed money. And Lamar Jackson, by all accounts, wants all of it guaranteed, or almost all of it at least guaranteed. And I think if you're the Ravens, Lamar Jackson has missed a lot of time the last 2 years, and it's not been good. They haven't won without him, so it's not like the Ravens can sit there and say, well, we don't need him. They certainly need him. But the other part of it that is weird, they've offered him, by all accounts, serious contracts, no traction, nothing. Does he want to be there? That's a fair question to ask at this point. Do you want to be there? And if he doesn't want to, if that's the case, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but if that's the case, I think if you're the Ravens, at some point you have to just deal him. You can't let him walk in a couple of years. You can't have that happen. So, this tag, I'll leave it on this. The franchise tag in the NFL right now, everybody keeps talking about the NFL, $32 million for a quarterback. But that's the non-exclusive tag. If you sign him to a $32 million deal, or $32 million tag, any team in the league can sign Jackson to an offer sheet structured however they want, and the Ravens would have to then have a week to match it in the exact terms. And if they don't, they lose him, and they get 2 first-round picks. How many teams would be willing to do that?
A lot, I would think.
A ton.
Yeah.
2 first-round picks is less than what Russell Wilson went for.
With no restriction on where those picks are in the first round or anything like that. It's just whatever that team is.
It's 2 firsts, nothing more than that. And I've seen a lot of people oddly say, I think that's the tag. If that's the tag they give him, he's going to get a long-term offer from somebody. That's coming. Now, they can give him the non-exclusive, or excuse me, they give him the exclusive tag. That's $45 million. So what are you going to do? Because if you give him the non-exclusive tag, you are playing a very dangerous game that some team with an inordinate amount of cap space this year goes, cool, $50 million in the first year. Now what? Now what are you going to do? They can poison pill you. And that's where, if you're a team that wants to do that, what do you care if you give up 2 first-round picks? That's way less than the going rate. Deshaun Watson, with all this stuff going on, he was worth 3 first plus.
Crazy.
So I think Baltimore is almost in a position where they've got to give me exclusive or say, hey, we're willing to match any offer that comes in here or lose him for 60 cents on the dollar. It's a really dangerous game to play.
The team that ought to use the non-exclusive tag on their quarterback is the Giants, because if somebody wants to give the Giants 2 first-round picks for Daniel Jones, everybody's happy. Everybody's happy there, and they can get away with it. But I'm completely with you on Lamar.
Yes. Have you ever seen the movie? It's called Liar Liar with Jim Carrey.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Where they're at one point he's in court and he just starts slamming the table with his hands, starts screaming, "Settle, settle, settle!" I feel like that would be the Giants if somebody offered a contract to Daniel Jones. They were getting 2 first-round picks. Yes, they could do that, and most teams, if the Chiefs tag Orlando Brown, of course they'd give him the non-exclusive tag. No team's giving the Chiefs 2 first-round picks for Orlando Brown, so you're fine there. Lamar Jackson is a whole other story. That's like if in a couple of years the Chargers and Justin Herbert can't agree, and the Chargers were just non-exclusive, it'll be fine, and it's 20 teams signed into an offer sheet. It's just anything's impossible. That would be. I think if you're Baltimore at that point, if they do that and they put them on the non-exclusive, to me that says we're going to let somebody take care of this whole contract business for us. Yeah. And if we're cool with it, well, we're good. Because if they match it, he's got to sign with them to that deal. That's it. But, if the Ravens are taking a shot in the dark, because if Atlanta or somebody like that comes in, $55 million first year, good luck. Like, what are you going to do? You're screwed at that point. Like, you're not working out some sign and trade. That's it. He's going there, and you're getting 2 firsts for a guy who's, in my opinion, if you were to trade him straight up, you probably could get 3 firsts, couple of seconds, maybe a third. Like, you get way more than 2 first-round picks for Lamar Jackson. He's 26 years old.
It's crazy. I can't wait to see how that plays out. And last thing for you, Matt, you mentioned a name that I wanted to ask you about because I just think that our answers on this might evolve over the course of the offseason. But the franchise tag window opens tomorrow, runs through the first week of March, so you certainly wouldn't expect any action to start tomorrow, I wouldn't think. But what do you what is your best bet on what happens with Orlando Brown Jr. this offseason?
By the way, you're probably right about not expecting action, but I remember a couple of years ago when that tag window opened and we were in Indianapolis and Brett Veach tagged Chris Jones like an hour into the window.
You're right. I forgot about that.
These things happen.
You're right. Okay, good call.
Yeah, but I think they're gonna tag him.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be shocked if they don't tag him. And then it just becomes a waiting game, right? July 15th is the deadline, as it is every year. You got to sign him to a long-term deal. I will say this. I think there's more urgency for the Chiefs this time around because if you don't sign him long-term, he's pretty much leaving after the season.
Yeah.
And that is a problem. Like, I know there are people who say, well, he's good, he's not great. Hey, it's nice to have a good left tackle.
Mm-hmm.
And down the stretch, played really, really well. Now, the other part of it with them is, too, you got Chris Jones, Willie Gay, Jerry Sneed, Frank Clark, all with 1 year left on their deals. You've got to figure that out now because you want to have all those guys taken care of. Frank Clark, he's a different deal because he's basically counting $30 million against the cap. Like, the question with him, are they going to cut him or are they going to extend him and bring the number down? Right. I mean, but Jones is a guy I think pretty obviously is worth the extension.
Mm-hmm.
But Jerry Sneed is terrific. But you want to have everybody taken care of going forward for whoever you want to keep, and maybe have either Jones or Sneed left open-ended because then you can tag them. You don't want both of them plus Brown plus Gay to be hitting the market. That's a real easy way to lose 3 or 4 stars off your team. So I think the Chiefs this year, look, it starts with tagging Brown, but most of that money they have, I think you got to use it internally to keep the team together and go from there.
Matt Verderame of Fansided on Twitter, at Matt Verderame. Check out Stacking the Box. Again, the piece up today as well, taking a little look at the quarterback carousel. Eric Bieniemy going to Washington. Some interesting stuff on exactly how young the Arizona Cardinals are and some other things going on around the league that are all really worth your time. Again, all up on fansided.com over there in the NFL section. Links are up on the Twitter account at Matt Verderame. Matt, I appreciate it. Good luck with the PB&J. Hope that gives you the energy you need for the rest of your day.
Oh, it will. Take care.
It never lets you down. Matt Verderame with us here in the Zone on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Joshua Briscoe and Beards McFly with you here today. Jason Anderson out. He'll be back soon. And we'll talk some more about all this football stuff when we come back because I think there are a few things that Matt mentioned there at the end that are going to put the Chiefs offseason in some interesting places. Not bad places. I actually like where the Chiefs stand. I'll tell you why next.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing to The Zone wherever you get your podcasts. The Zone with Jason Anderson
This is the
Vince McMahon.
on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I won't always over-explain the liners, but that one's such a deep cut from the first time the XFL got rebooted. I just need to let everyone know that what you heard there, Beards, you still have it open. Can you just isolate just the name you said there at the end?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
That is, in fact, the voice of Beards McFly. That was him discussing the man at the helm of the XFL's original reboot, also best known for the WWE. That is, of course,
Vince McMahon.
Vince
Listen.
McMahon.
Listen, sometimes talking is hard.
I get it, man. Or as you might say, McMursh.
Vince McMahon.
That's Vince McMahon was the name Beards was trying to say. One more time.
Vince McMahon.
Every time it makes me just so happy. I did like a couple of the things the XFL was doing yesterday. We talked about it a little bit there with Verderame, but I don't think the 1-point, 2-point, 3-point conversion thing is probably ever going to make sense at the NFL level for two reasons. One is that having a series of designed 1-point plays, which I think are from the 2-yard line, and then 3-point plays for maybe like the 4 or 5. I can't remember exactly. But the idea of Andy Reid having to burn 5 of those plays in one game seems really unlikely, even if you're just trying to use your offensive line. Maybe the 2022 Eagles would have been cool with that because their power running game was so effective, and it all comes down the O-line. I could see that being a little more transformative to the game than it would like for it to be. But the 4th and 15 from, I believe, your own 25-yard line. I closed the rule sheet I had open here. But it's deep back in your own territory. You play it as if it's 4th and 15. You get one play. And if you convert, the drive continues from there. You keep the ball. If you don't convert, the other team takes the ball from the point of the snap. And if you can only do it in the fourth quarter when you're trailing, it's not like you can't do it as a make it, take it sort of mechanism, which if you're the Chiefs would be very tempting. When you think about that as being a direct response to the fact that the onside kick has been all but phased out of the modern game, not the attempts of it, but its effectiveness has been all but phased out of the modern game, I like that. I like that as an alternative for a team to have a chance to erase a deficit there at the end. Now, in the game where that was in play, when the Battlehawks came back, I've been watching enough of that game to know that their points were extremely hard to come by, and they were in desperation mode, but they score, keep the ball, go score again, win the game. Did the best team win that game? No, I don't think it did. From the amount of it that I watched, it seemed like San Antonio was the better team. And so maybe the make it, take it possibilities are really just there for the underdogs. But it was a good product. And maybe it adds a little more randomness, but maybe it also adds a little more fun. Now, again, if you're in a Super Bowl type game and you think you can turn the tides with 2 good minutes at the end of the game, I could see that being kind of unfulfilling. I also could see that being extremely entertaining to know that being down 14 with 2 minutes left isn't the end of the world, actually. There is a chance if you have the ball there that you can still make that happen. Unlikely, but could be fun. I enjoyed that. Here's my, and actually, Beards, you tell me. I know we've only been back for a second. We talked about Vince McMursh, and I gave you my real quick XFL take. Also, that I like the idea of this being something I could watch to figure out, hey, if A.J. McCarron is a backup quarterback for the Chiefs next year competing with Shane Buechele, what am I seeing? I've talked many times over about how I would like for there to be kind of an affiliation for NFL teams to, quote, unquote, minor league type squads from the XFL or AAF or whoever it may be, because then you could actually watch Shane Buechele play spring football. I would tune in for that. I really would. But Beards, I want to get a quick Chiefs take out there. And so I think if we take a break now, we can come back and stretch our legs a tiny bit in our next segment.
That works.
And I can give you my big mastermind take about how this Chiefs offseason could really go by pretty darn smoothly with like 3 moves. Let's go ahead and do that. Yeah, that's right. It's a tease of a tease, because I kind of teased this last segment, but this time I mean it. I want to talk about a couple of quick, easy signings the Chiefs could make that could really make the rest of this offseason pretty low stress and continue to help them reload for the future. It's a cool way to look at it. I'll try to sell you on it next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB. You're in the zone
The motto that I've held very close to my heart is, if you can't do it, don't try.
with Jason Anderson
It's got me very far in life.
on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Okay, no more teasing. I want to tell you something I stumbled upon looking at some of the Chiefs' offseason moves they could be making that I just think could take a little bit of stress out of all of this for everybody. It partially starts with Juan Thornhill's deal and what his market may be. PFF and a few other places have kind of put together the projected markets for some of these guys, and the safety market this year has quite a few good players in it, to the point that what I've seen so far from Juan Thornhill's potential market, and we'll get more in the nitty-gritty of this as we go, but the numbers that I have seen have not scared me off one bit. It seems like incredibly fair market value for Thornhill. And I just want you to think about what it could mean to go ahead and lock him up for the next 2 years. Again, if it's a 2-year deal where about a year and a half of it is guaranteed, not that, a season and a half, but, year one's guaranteed, the second year's mostly guaranteed or partially guaranteed, so it'd be hard to cut after 1 year. If you want to guarantee 2 full years, basically, I'd be tempted, depending on what the number would be, if that would keep the overall number down a little. If the Chiefs do sign Juan Thornhill to a couple-year deal, and as Verderame mentioned earlier this hour, look, L'Jarius Sneed is going into the last year of his deal. Willie Gay is going into the last year of his deal. Right now, Chris Jones is going into the last year of his deal. If they franchise tag Orlando Brown Jr. and don't extend him, he'd be going into the last year of his deal. Right now, the actual pending free agents, Brown, Thornhill, Wiley, are all certainly high on that list. But if the Chiefs do figure something out here with Juan Thornhill, I want you to take a look at the secondary, where if they use some money on Sneed this offseason to extend him going forward, this could extend even longer down the road. But Justin Reed just completed his first season with the Chiefs. Jalen Watson and Brian Cook and Joshua Williams and Trent McDuffie all just finished the first year of their rookie deals with the Chiefs. And if you sign Thornhill to a deal where he's sticking around for the next couple seasons, the only piece you have to reevaluate in the next 2 years is L'Jarius Sneed, who I do believe the Chiefs are going to be willing to pay. Just because he is such a Swiss Army knife who also can travel, who can also blitz out of the slot, who can do pretty much anything you want. Even though they drafted all these young corners and got great results out of so many of them so far, I think the Chiefs will be willing to pay L'Jarius Sneed without feeling like they absolutely have to pay him. But if they lock up Juan Thornhill, and again, I'm not talking about now planning beyond these next couple seasons, because you're still going to want to use draft picks to refill your depth and replan for the long haul. But next year, it's the exact same secondary, just with more experience. And you've got Nick Bolton still with a couple years left. Willie Gay with this upcoming year still left. Leo Chanel just finished the first year of his rookie deal. You get Chris Jones done in the middle, your best defensive player is locked up. George Karlaftis just finished the first year of his rookie deal. This is what I'm talking about here. This is the promise of the draft class, of the Tyreek Hill trade, of everything that comes after. The Chiefs could go into this offseason with their defense, the vast majority of it being the exact same guys it was this year, just with another year of experience in the NFL and with another year of experience playing together. You can just pour draft picks into the trenches, maybe get your wide receiver, and this team's in really, really good shape without big-name additions. We go back to basketball with Matt Tait next.
Now, on Sports Radio 810 Sports Center.
This Sports Center is brought to you by Greenlight Dispensary. Check out Greenlight Dispensary for their outstanding customer service, superior product, and 69 to 60 to Texas A&M. Tonight, KU and TCU at 8 o'clock. A big one down there in Texas. Pre-game starting at 6:30 right here on your home for the Jayhawks. Sports Radio 810 WHB. Matt Tait joins us next.
You're in the zone.
You know, Cal makes Brad call him dad. Can't call him coach.
Really?
He makes him call him dad in practice.
That's kind of bleeped up.
I don't
like that.
That's kind of weird.
With Jason Anderson.
Like, could you imagine Tyler Self calling Bill dad in practice?
No. I know plenty of KU fans that call him daddy, but that's different.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Well, listen, like I said earlier, I hadn't been to Allen Fieldhouse in a little while, and I'm not even sure I've actually been since the pandemic. And so going on into Allen on Saturday, then hitting halftime, the only thing that I thought we were going to see that was going to be good in a KU jersey was the balancing guy with a little dog. But the second half brought a lot more excitement to the Fog. We talk about that now with our guy Matt Tait of the Lawrence Journal World, KUSports.com.
No, I don't think you're crazy at all. I mean, I was talking with some people after the game. It's getting really difficult to put into words how they do that or really even what they do. And, you know, you try to figure out different ways to ask the question or you try to maybe write a different spin on it or whatever. But, like, it's still the same question. And the answer always comes down to, especially if you're asking a guy like Jalen Wilson, the answer always comes down to, you know, we never count ourselves out. We always believe in ourselves. We always believe we're going to have a chance. And they do. And that's not a line of BS. You know, that's genuine. It stems from last year's national championship game and even before that. And it's been carried through this year in a way that I don't remember seeing. I mean, they've been down and in so many holes so many times this season. And you know, they haven't got out of all of them, obviously, but they've gotten out of most of them, and especially at home, they've gotten out of most of them. And it just comes down to this idea that I don't think it's necessarily a switch that they flip. I think that's too elementary. I don't think that's fair to call it just a switch. I think it's just this inner drive, this absolute determination, this pride that they decide in a moment or over a stretch of time that, well, we're not going to go out like this. This is flat out embarrassing. So let's go. And then they go. And part of that's on the guys. Part of that's on Coach Self and his staff. Part of that's on just the expectation and the standard that Kansas has. And it really is remarkable. I mean, you know, I don't think you're wrong at all to say that was special because I've seen them down before. We've all seen it. I've covered a lot of games there where they were down and came back. But I don't remember a game quite like that where they were so dead in the water. I mean, it wasn't just they played poorly and they were down on the scoreboard. It was they played like trash and the opponent played lights out. And in all honesty, they were probably really lucky to have it be 13 at half because that is, in a very real way, manageable. 17, 18, 20, you know, now you're talking about a hell of a hole. But I think that 13-point deficit was big because exactly what they did was exactly what they needed, and it gave them some immediate hope. You go get a couple of buckets and a couple of stops, and this is a game again. And that's what happened. Momentum built from there. The crowd got crazy like it does, and Baylor had no chance. I mean, as good as Baylor was in the first half and as bad as KU was, I think both of them exceeded the other in the second half. I think Baylor was worse in the second half. Then KU was bad in the first half, and I think KU was better in the second half than Baylor was good in the first half. It was an unbelievable game, an unbelievable comeback, and my biggest takeaway walking away from that game was that is two teams that are capable of winning the national championship. They got to play well. They can't play just one half, obviously, but if either of them or both of them bring their A game, they can make a run as good as anybody. So it was incredible to see that. And like I said, it's really getting difficult to kind of try to put into words and write that. I actually wish I'd been doing like a voice recording thing on this because I think I did it okay right there. I'd probably just run that as a column for today and take the rest of the day off.
Yeah, I mean, I think you should. We can send you the file afterwards. We'll podcast it. I just tried to like shove a couple bucks into the phone in here because I thought this was worth paying for. I appreciate you you just giving it away for free. Even your preamble is so funny to me because it's so telling of like. There is I think a natural cynicism that most people have, especially when we work around sports for any amount of time, and you've covered this team for long enough to even think to say, hey, this isn't BS, even though it sounds like it should be. Like, it just sort of feels like the court's always tilted towards KU's basket, right? Like that you're playing on a driveway, and that negative momentum, however you want to quantify momentum, right? It's a big sort of I don't know, difficult to define word, I guess, but however you're slanting it, right? KU being down 15 it feels like 5. And when they're up by 5, it feels like 20 at times. Like you said, Baylor in the second half, it felt like they had no chance. And for the shift that we saw that way, it's just absolutely bonkers. You mentioned that these are two teams that can absolutely win it all. In your story right now, people can read KUSports.com. You are not the only one with that takeaway after the game. What did you hear that was interesting from Bill Self and Scott Drew talking about each other and each other's teams?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, a lot of people like to get on Scott Drew. A lot of Kansas fans like to get on him, and I understand it. I mean, they were up double digits the whole first half, and he was still whining and yelling about foul calls. I understand that. I understand why they get on him. I understand why he does that. You have to fight with everything you got in Allen Fieldhouse if you're the opponent. So, but then the game went the way it went, and afterwards, he basically said, "Hey, we got beat. They were really good, and we weren't, and that's what happened." And he took his medicine. There was no whining. We've heard him in that room whine about the officials before. He's not afraid to do it. He realized there was no need to do that today. It wasn't going to fly. And I think that the coolest thing that he said was just the very idea of what I just talked about, which was that was really cool for the Big 12 to see because that was a half of Kansas at its best and a half of Baylor at its best. And for him to acknowledge that and see that, and look, that's not BS either. Well, this will be the theme of this spot.
Yeah.
This is a BS themed segment. That was not BS either because Scott Drew, as much as he's sick 'em, go Baylor, green and gold till the end of time, right? Like, he is a big-time supporter of the Big 12 Conference. I've seen him at least 2 separate times when KU and Baylor were at the same site, come off the floor after their game was over, win or lose, and KU's about to take the floor to play its game, and Scott Drew screaming and hollering, "Let's go Big 12, let's go Big 12." And, he doesn't have to do that, especially after a loss that just ended your season. It'd be fine if he didn't give a rip, and no one would criticize him for that. But I think the genuine love of the Big 12 is something that runs throughout the conference. I don't think it's just him. I think all these coaches and really a lot of the players, because a lot of them grew up knowing each other and things of that nature. There's some pride there, man. They take a lot of pride in that idea that this is the best conference in America. And why shouldn't they? I mean, we see that in the SEC with football all the time, right? Like, anybody that will bend over backwards and go out of their way to say, "Oh, the SEC, I'm a part of that. It's the best football conference known to man in the history of the earth," And so why can't the basketball schools do that with the Big 12 when, in my opinion, the Big 12's got a better argument even than the SEC. Like, the SEC is top-heavy and really, really good at the top in football, and they're going to win all the national titles. We know that. That's very common now. But it's not the best conference top to bottom. There's some dogs in there, et cetera, et cetera. This Big 12 thing is an absolute grind. You saw Oklahoma the other night take Texas to overtime. That's an Oklahoma team that I couldn't have been more excited to write off when I saw KU play them. They looked terrible. I thought they were absolute trash, and then they respond by beating K-State, taking Texas to overtime. I mean, we could go on and on about how good this conference is, but getting back to the point, that was Coach Drew saying that about the Big 12 and about KU and Baylor. I mean, it was cool to see. It was a very real moment and a very genuine thing where he's not just spitting words out. He's not just trying to get out of there. He I think really thought that was cool. Like, does he want Kansas to win it all? Probably not. But I would bet if he was told Baylor's not going to win it all, who would you want? Well, he'd probably say let's go KU or let's go K-State or let's go Iowa State. I don't know if he reached as far as Texas. That might be a little harder for him, especially when they're on their way out the door. But I think he would genuinely root for any of those Big 12 schools to win if his team can.
I love your SEC point because you're right. I mean, not to pick at any scabs for anybody, but like when Mizzou went to the SEC, they were selling gold and black SEC T-shirts. I mean, that was a point of pride. It just means more, so they say. So for the Big 12 to just fully embrace that and try to take ownership of being so clearly you help me put this into perspective, but like not just the best conference in basketball, but the best conference we've seen in God knows how long, maybe ever. I don't. Again, you want to go top to bottom, and even talking about Oklahoma, I was talking with our dear friend OU's own Todd Lebo before that K-State game, and he could not have been more eager to push us all to the betting apps and say no, this team's garbage. This can't be it. And then the Big 12 happened. Exactly. It just keeps happening. So how do you put that into perspective? And even before we talk about TCU tonight, which just I think is so funny, the lowly 7-7 Horned Frogs in the conference are top 25 team. Okay, sure, why not?
Well, sure. I mean, the TCU team is a team, and part of it's the way they put a beating on KU. But that's a team that when I saw them early, they were my pick to win the Big 12. I mean. And then injuries happen, and those things are tough. That's why they're 7-7, I think. But if they've stayed healthy, that's as good a roster as there is in this conference right now. And they've got toughness, and they can play D, and they've got confidence, and all those things. So, KU will get a dose of that tonight. But we'll get to that. I mean, your question about what was it exactly? Why is this conference so good? Is that what you're basically asking?
Do you have historical precedent for a conference being quite this overwhelming? Like it's just a remarkable thing.
I think so too. I mean, when you're talking top, there's no doubt that this is the best we've seen. I mean, for one, it's only 10 teams. That helps. But two, like I just don't think anybody probably can remember. Like comes close, like the heyday of the Big East, which is. Books have been written about that, right? I mean, that thing was a monster, and it was a different brand of basketball, and it was some legendary players, and the Big 12 has that going right now. I don't know how many legends are playing currently. There's at least one at Kansas. Jalen Wilson is a legend. He should very much be in the freaking Player of the Year conversation nationally. He will have his jersey hanging in Allen Fieldhouse. I mean, that's legendary stuff right there, and the guy deserves it. But, beyond that, I don't know about the rest of the conference, how many true legends like the Patrick Ewings and the Chris Mullins and guys of that nature, But having said that, I mean, I think the Big East is probably as close as it gets. The ACC surely had some really good runs. We can all remember, maybe not you. You're a little bit younger. I'm sorry. But obviously Duke and Carolina and Wake Forest and NC State and, really before the ACC kind of watered itself down, right? There was some really good Maryland, a lot of good teams down there. So, but even then, I just don't know if there's ever been a conference top to bottom, which Oklahoma is the perfect example of that. And I don't know what it is. It is hard to put your finger on. I think a lot of it's coaching. There's some really good coaches in this league. I think a lot of it's obviously talent, that all the rosters have legit talent. People want to play in this league, so you get your recruiting takes a bump from that, and they like the challenge. The players like the challenge of coming into this league and trying to compete and knowing they're going to have to bring their best every night, and knowing that helps develop them for their goals beyond college, et cetera, et cetera. So I think those things factor in. But really, I just think, there's just some sort of unknown, unseen. It's just a pride thing, man. I think the longer this has gone, and this is nothing new. This top to bottom thing is new, but calling the Big 12 the best conference in college basketball is absolutely nothing new. This has been however many years going now, right? And it hasn't always been this clear, and it hasn't always been this dominant, and it hasn't always been this obvious, and all the teams are worthy of being tournament teams. they're not all going to get in, but if they all did get in, they could all win a game or two at least. That's incredible. So that's new, but I think the idea that the Big 12 is whether you're talking about the highest rated RPI conference or whatever you're talking in the net rankings or whatever, I mean, that's been 5, 6, 7 years going. You'd have to look back, obviously, and there may be a year in there, but over the last 10 years, I would be shocked if it was more than 2 years where the Big 12, 2 or 3 max, where the Big 12 wasn't the top-rated conference in college basketball. It's just this year it's so much more obvious to everyone, and you're getting national people buying into that and expressing that and promoting that, and it makes for a heck of a couple of weeks here coming up. I mean, the Big 12 tournament. I saw on Twitter last night. I don't remember who it was, so my apologies if you're listening. But somebody said, "Hey, is this Big 12 tournament going to be better than the NCAA tournament?" And I almost responded, and I was like, my knee-jerk reaction was, yeah, hell yeah, it is. But then I kind of calmed down and thought, Big 12 tournament's going to be a dogfight, and it's going to be awesome, and it's going to be 3 days or 4 days of just incredible basketball. But what it's not going to have is that 15 beats the 2 that makes it so much better, right? And I guess it could. You could have Lebo's squad make a run to the whole thing. But even then, is anyone gonna look at OU as a darling like St. Peter's last year? I don't think so. With all due respect to Todd, I know he'll have his whole head painted if that happens. But it's not the same as the Peacocks last year. That's too good of a run, and that's the only thing missing. But if you're talking high quality basketball games, Wednesday night of the tournament's going to be a blast, and you're going to watch some really good teams playing, and then forget about Thursday, Friday, Saturday. That's going to be insane.
Yeah. So last thing on the Big 12 then, before we do talk a little bit about TCU in particular. Do you think we're going to get that KU at Texas title game essentially? Obviously, Baylor is far from out of it, and there's a lot of basketball to be played. KU's got to go at TCU tonight, a couple home games, then at Texas. Meanwhile, Texas goes at Baylor in 5 days from now, and then at TCU before hosting KU. What do you think those final couple games are going to look like in terms of deciding the conference champ?
Yeah, I don't know. My gut tells me that will be that KU-Texas game in Austin on March 4th will be a Texas needs to win it to get a share.
That feels right.
That's what my gut tells me. And then obviously that would mean Kansas could win the game and win it outright. No telling if that'll happen. They all have tough teams. I even looked at TCU's schedule, even at 7-7, which puts them 3 games back with 4 to go right now. I looked last night and I was like, well, do they still have KU? Do they still have Texas? Do they still have Baylor? Because if they do, they could maybe win out and win the thing still. And they do. They have KU and Texas. They don't have Baylor. And even winning out, I just think there's too much ahead of them.
Yeah.
I don't think that can happen. But the point is, right, like you just said it. I mean, it's not quite down to just KU and Texas yet, but it certainly feels like they've got the best chance. Baylor does get a say in it. They'll get a crack at Texas, and that's a big one. And then all of a sudden, Baylor may very well be rooting for Texas in that last game, to help them. So I think it'd be awesome. I love when conferences or divisions or whatever. I love when they set up to have the schedule play out that last game decides it. I think it'd be awesome if the two were tied still going into that. I don't think you can ask for better drama and theater and promotion and hype and all that would go into that game. They haven't announced the game time for that one yet. So selfishly, I would imagine if they're tied and they're going into the final game there, they would probably put that at 8 p.m. And as a writer with a deadline, those games suck. So I'm hoping they go ahead and make that one a decision right now where they say, let's play it at 1 and let's have some fun. Give everybody the rest of their day, But yeah, I think that obviously looms as a big game. The only thing is, and I don't say this just because of what happened against Oklahoma. I think we were seeing signs of this before that. I think Texas is fading a little bit, and it's hard to imagine they wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
Like everybody else has had their stretch where they've lost 3 in a row, or they've lost 4 of 5, or 5 of 6, or more than 3 in a row, or whatever it is. You know, they all have, every one of them. And Texas had not until recently, and now they're starting to find that, and obviously finding it at a terrible time. But I just feel like it's hard to stay on top in this conference. It's hard to stay on top of any conference, but it's hard to stay on top in this conference this particular year, and I think that's catching up with them. So, man, tonight's big. You know, tonight is really big for Kansas. I would say if Kansas wins tonight, I think they win the conference, maybe even outright. I think they've got a really nice schedule with those 2 games against Texas Tech and West Virginia being at home, while other teams are playing TCU and Baylor and Texas and K-State and Iowa State, right? Like those other teams all play each other. This thing fell perfect for KU to get those 2 schools at home. Neither one's going to be easy. We have already established that. We've all seen it. You and I have talked about it here today. So Kansas can't go into those games thinking, oh, cool, finally a break. Texas Tech and West Virginia, we'll roll over these guys. Not the case. But I think KU's mindset and maturity and growth that's led up to now that will take them into those games, I think those make those easier wins and easier games, and especially being at home. So at that point, man, you kind of let everything else fall where it falls. If you can get tonight and you go get those 2, the odds of Texas or Baylor losing another one of them's going to lose one because they play each other. So, you know, the odds of at least one of them losing again are way high, and they both could. And then that puts you in a really good position where that last game on March 4th maybe doesn't matter as much. So the schedule sets up well, and they've got to like the position they're in. That's, again, why I think tonight's so big. And it's going to be really hard, and TCU has become a weird, tough place to play all of a sudden. It used to not be at all, but the place gets pretty loud. It's like 6,800 is all it seats, but they get into it when they're good, and they are good. So tonight I'm not going to go as dramatic and as far as to say this is for the conference tonight, but I think if you start looking, if Kansas wins tonight and you start looking at those, you know, predictive measures and things of that nature, I think their number on DraftKings and their win probability of winning the conference on KenPom and all those things, I think those go really, really high, really, really fast if they can win tonight.
Talking to Matt Tait of the Lawrence Journal World and KUSports.com, 2 places you can get a lot of post-game coverage after the game tonight, which, of course, you can hear right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. So what are you looking for tonight, Matt, in terms of what KU does need to do to pull off? I just checked the upset. Again, Big 12 home and all that, I get it, but I was a little surprised to see right now it looks like it's sitting at about 2 points. You mentioned Jalen Wilson, and he, I think, has gotten some conversation that he's earned, even though a lot of us have had our head in the football-shaped clouds for the last couple of months still. But we're seeing him, I think, get respected around here enough. But what else does Kansas need, non-Jalen Wilson division, to win this game tonight?
There's 2 things, and I did finish my preview last night pretty late, so I'm going to make it live here in a minute, and it'll carry people through the day if they want to read it. But there's 2 things that really jumped out at me, and I based them all on what happened in the first game, because obviously TCU came into Lawrence and beat the brakes off of Kansas. It's 83-60. KU was hardly ever in the game, and it was ugly. It looked as bad as that score sounds, maybe worse. So the 2 things that really jumped out at me there, DeJuan Harris, man, he took 4 shots. He didn't score a point, and he was not very good that game. And we've seen since then a lot of evidence of DeJuan's importance, especially as an offensive player and especially as a scorer. So he has to shoot the ball. He has to be aggressive. He has to look to score. He knows that. His teammates know that. His coaches know that. They all understand it. It's not anything they have to drill into his head anymore. It's just something he has to go out and do. And he didn't do that against Baylor in the first half. He took 1 shot, had no impact, and came out, took the first shot of the second half, made 6 of 7, and really dominated the game with his defense and then offensive scoring too. So I think DeJuan Harris is so massive tonight. I think you could say that every game just because of his importance and what he does when he scores and how it opens things up. So he's so huge, especially because of how he played against these guys last time. And then the other thing is turnovers. Self said before the first game that TCU is by far, I think those were exactly his words, by far the best team in transition in this conference, which is saying something. And, you just can't help them get out and run. You can't have the live ball turnovers. Obviously, you want to cut down your turnovers entirely, but the live ball turnovers are a disaster because not only do you give it away, but it usually leads to a very easy basket for those guys. I think KU turned it over 17 times last time. TCU scored 20 points off of those turnovers. A lot of them layups and dunks, uncontested, going the other way. When you score 20 points off live ball turnovers like that and you win by 23, it doesn't take a genius to figure out what the difference in the game was, right? So take care of the ball, and it's funny because these things are always keys, right? Like you never want to turn it over. Sure. That's the key for every game, but it is different with each matchup, and sometimes you look at that as maybe a bigger key than in some other games, and I think that's the case tonight. The other thing is the last thing that I kind of pointed out was Eddie Lampkin's a beast, man. 6'11", 263. He hurt himself significantly against KU, had to come out of the game, went back into the game, and was getting freaking one-armed rebounds on one leg. That was a real indication to me of how severe the lack of a big post presence that KU had that day was. And they need that. They need it to be more than KJ Adams, especially when they run into a guy like this. Since then, Ernest Uday's taken some steps forward. He's had some really good games. OU was one. At Kentucky, when he battled with Oscar, was one. He's a different player today than he was when TCU came to Lawrence. And so I don't think he has to go out there and go toe-for-toe with Lampkin or anything crazy like that. It's not going to happen. But he needs to be ready to give him 10, 12 good minutes and be legit size and be a guy who can go out there and impact the game, whether that's rebounding, walling up, blocking shots, or just being big and playing to your size. Whatever that is, one or two of those things have to be there. And I think Ernest is more prepared to do that today than he was then. And so that's something to watch if you're obviously, going to look past the Jalen Wilson and the Mike Miles and the DeJuan Harris and all these other guys that factor in and can win a game by themselves. That's a big one for Kansas, I think. One of those more subtle things that could have a huge, huge impact.
Matt, I appreciate you making the time here with us. I will warn you that I think next time we have you on, Jason should be back. So however you need to adjust your game plan for that, I'll give you the heads up. But I appreciate you being here with us today to look back on Baylor, look ahead at TCU, and then that pesky little tournament that'll come after the big one, the Big 12 tournament, going forward. I hope we stay in touch the rest of basketball season because this was great.
All right, man. Well, thanks. Yeah, appreciate you having me as always, and I do appreciate the warning too. That'll come in handy. I'll start drawing some things up, and I'll be ready. He's tough, but I'll be ready for him.
Playing defense becomes all the more important. I'm not really an attacker, but he'll go get you. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it.
All right, Josh. Thanks, man. Take care.
Matt Tait of the Lawrence Journal World, KUSports.com. You can also follow him on Twitter at MCTait. And yes, again, tonight's game, KU and TCU will have pregame coverage for you. And then, of course, the game itself, postgame coverage, all the coverage you need right here on your home for Kansas Athletics, Sports Radio 810 WHB. You may have picked up on it. Jason Anderson out again today. Hoping to have him back healthy and back in the fold again tomorrow. I'm Joshua Briscoe, though, here across the glass from Beards McFly. More Zone just around the corner.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
All right, what'd you learn this weekend, Briscoe?
Learning that Beards is a bleep head.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Thanks again to Matt Tait of the Lawrence Journal World and KUSports.com. You want to check out his aforementioned preview of tonight's game, KU-TCU. That tips off at 8 o'clock right here on your home for Kansas Athletics. That's us, Sports Radio 810 WHB. Pregame starting at 6:30. Of course, the program live from Surprise will begin at 2 o'clock today. Then we'll even have a little extra pregame for you. We're going to really be talking KU pretty hot and heavy from 6 up until tip-off. Also here, we've got the latest top 25 from the AP. Should have mentioned this a little bit ago, but got it now here, where KU has moved from 5 up to 3 in the AP top 25 after beating Oklahoma State and Baylor. And K-State has dropped 2 spots down to number 14. They lost to OU on the road, then beat Iowa State in that comeback win on Saturday. The new number 1, Houston at the top there. Number 2, UCLA, and Alabama drops. All the Big 12 teams here. You got 5 different Big 12 teams ranked. KU at 3, Texas at 8, Baylor at 9, K-State at 14, Iowa State at 23, and TCU at 24. So tonight's game now by the AP standings, number 3 Kansas at number 24 TCU. I wanted to talk with Beards a little bit about the dunk contest. Josh Briscoe and Beards here with you today. Jason's out, should be back shortly. But I wanted to talk about the dunk contest because Beards is a big NBA nerd. I'm an NBA, I would say, a hobbyist, enthusiast. I just want the Suns to be good. Honestly, I enjoy all the NBA drama, but like, I'm gonna get League Pass fired back up when KD starts playing in purple. Oh boy, getting excited just thinking about it. But we talked a little bit about the dunk contest in recent years, Beards, and I feel like you have had a special place in your heart for the dunk contest.
Dunk contest is fun.
I don't know if that passion has stuck around for you, but I'm not sure. I think you were not necessarily enraptured by it this year, but I wanted to know what you thought, and I've got an interesting take on it that I saw Bomani Jones put out there that I thought was worth talking about.
I did not end up watching it live. Excuse me. Didn't end up watching it live. I was able to catch like the highlight package afterwards that they'll put out. Names haven't been good the last couple of years. It's not ideal.
No.
It's not ideal when you put your poster up of here's who's in the dunk contest, and one guy is in a G League jersey because he has not played an NBA game this season.
Did Matt
not where you want to be.
Did Matt McClung end up registering a minute before the dunk contest?
Not this year. He has played 2 NBA games in his career. They were both last year, and they were both for different teams.
I think it is a totally reasonable take, and Beards, I'm not just trying to deposit this take on you, but if this is where you're at, let me know. But I think it is a very reasonable take to say the dunk contest is at its best whenever it's players we've actually heard of and seen have big dunks in games. It would be more fun if Giannis was doing it with a whole cast of characters around him of household names. If that's where you're coming from, I think that's reasonable.
Well, the names you'd put are like Zion.
Zion would be great.
Ja.
Ja would be great.
Anthony Edwards.
I feel Giannis feels like Anthony Edwards would be great. Giannis feels like the type of guy who the explosiveness of the other guys you just mentioned, it would be visually very different for Giannis, but he seems like a type of guy. Has he ever done it? The dunk contest?
I think so.
Maybe he did it when he was younger. I don't know why. The thing I have in my head is just Giannis feels like a guy who would enjoy doing it. Which for me is like basically, if you're a household name who would have fun with it, you have met my criteria.
He did it in 2015. He scored poorly and didn't make it out of the first round.
Interesting.
That was the first Zach LaVine dunk contest.
Okay. So, is it fair to say, is that where you'd be coming from, Beards? Is if you can get the stars in it, that's the best form of the dunk contest, right?
I would like some stars in it.
I think that's totally reasonable.
Because I think that adds to the anticipation of it. It's more exciting when you're going, ooh, I wonder what Vince Carter's going to do.
Absolutely.
And then Vince Carter does some crazy bleep and makes it incredible, and you're always going to remember that. Whereas this year it was,
You find the list.
Let me look.
You find the list.
Let me look.
Here's my one part of that I'm just thinking out loud here.
I'm not sitting there going, man, I wonder what Jericho Sims is going to do.
Is he
He's a Nick.
net?
He's a Nick.
I got the right state.
You did.
The one thing I wonder about is being the one star with the group of Jericho Sims and G Leaguers might be a tough spot because it's kind of lose-lose. Either you're the NBA star who beats essentially the walk-ons, or you're the NBA star who loses to Mac McClung. That might be a tougher sell than to try to get all kind of like A or B list starters and stars. I'm thinking out loud.
What I have thought about in the past, and I think I kind of fine-tuned this a little bit, they used to have 6 people in the dunk contest every year.
Okay.
Now they've got 4. I have had the thought, make half of them all-stars that are all-stars that year, and either have them voted on by the fans or just have like the league say, hey, we want you to do it. That is also very temperamental in terms of who is an all-star that year.
Sure.
Because if it's like Al Horford, you're not going to put Al Horford in the dunk contest.
Ideally not, no.
It wouldn't be great.
No.
But I'd like to have a couple all-stars in it. 3-point contest is littered with them every year.
Yeah.
There's always good high-level players in the 3-point contest, and that just has not been the same way with the dunk contest for quite a while.
Here's what Bomani tweeted that I thought was interesting. Bomani Jones, of course, ESPN, now Game Theory on HBO. He tweeted after some of the Mac McClung clips were going around. He said, honestly, I'd expect the dunk contest to turn into guys like McClung. The dudes in the league clearly don't want to do it. These G League type cats have more to prove and more to gain. And to be a better show, I wouldn't have a problem with it, I don't think. He had tweeted the night of the dunk contest. They didn't do all this to get McClung into the dunk contest because he wasn't a beast at this. NBA did it for the gram, and this is a case where that's not the worst thing. He said, this is honestly a sign of what we talked about on Game Theory. Putting McClung in this was a Gen Z play. The dude wasn't even in the league when they put him in the contest. And one of the interesting things about that is that if you just sort of make it an and-one mixtape style dunk contest, you're not tuning in for the NBA stars who continually inform you that they are not interested in doing it, but you just try to make it a showcase of the wildest high flyers you can find. And if you're a G League type of guy that wants to get a little bit more of a I'm guessing that Mac McClung hasn't had this Twitter presence in a while, right?
I think I saw that he made $107,000 in his career earnings, and the dunk contest won him $100,000.
Amazing. And that's not including whatever endorsements can come out of winning the dunk contest, right? There is motivation for guys like him to do it. And if you are really just at that point hunting for the best dunkers, I understand the star power not being there is one thing. Here's what I would posit. A thing like Mac McClung, if it can be guys who have a little bit of name recognition out of college, right? If it is the equivalent of finding your NCAA tournament rising stars, maybe it's guys who were in college for a few years, who were not lottery picks, who might not even been draft picks, or they're your late second round guys who end up in the G League, but there is some name recognition to them. I could see there being something there of like, hey, remember this guy you really liked in college a couple years ago? Now here he is dunking for you again. And now you know what team he's in the system of. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. I think having superstars do it. I don't think Vince Carter's dunks would go down in history the way they did if they were done by some random G Leaguer. I think that does matter. But I could see there being an argument for like, hey, just find guys who do want to do this, who will bring the wackiest dunks possible, and hopefully it's somebody who you've heard of at some point for some reason. I'm open to that. I don't know. How does that feel for you, Beards? It's watered down from the ideal, but I think it's probably better than just trying to get a bunch of like fringe starter types that still don't really want to be there that much.
Like the ones that they've been doing the last few years?
Yeah, it's a little more interesting what the last couple years have been, I think.
I don't know. I still want big names. just because I think that adds to the anticipation and the excitement. Of
I
it
agree
all.
with you. Absolutely.
I don't know what they do to fix it to where they get those people. I think they might just need the right guy to come along and be like, hey, I want to do this. I'm also really freaking good at it.
It feels like Zion, and this could just be a health risk thing where it's not worth him putting that out there. He felt like he would have been one of the guys.
Yeah.
Ja felt like he would have been one of those guys.
The problem with Zion, excuse me.
You're getting choked up, man. I get it. I understand. It's an emotional time for all
poor
of us.
dunk contest. The problem with Zion is kind of the same thing that happened to Blake Griffin, because Blake did the dunk contest, won it.
Yeah,
it was good.
Yeah.
It wasn't like all the hype around it wasn't quite as much
quite
as
met.
It could have been.
Yep.
But also you just don't want to be labeled as, oh, I'm just the guy that dunks all the time.
Yeah, which that also makes sense. I hadn't really considered that about that going back to Blake Griffin. But right, is that painting you into a corner somehow? And is there a way to make it a friendlier environment for superstars to want to go perform in that environment? I
just want to see Zion try and tear a rim off a backboard, man. I
don't want to see Zion tear anything. That's my bigger concern. So you want to see him tear the rim off the backboard? I'm concerned about him tearing a tendon off a bone. I just want to see him be healthy. Ideally not in a playoff series against the Suns or whatever, but you know what I mean. Generally rooting for health. It's an interesting little conundrum that I don't know that there's an easy solution to it, but I think that at least continuing to tinker a little bit and see if you can find a little bit of juice for it makes sense. And also, here's the other thing. Honestly, if you said, what would it take for you to watch it live? For you to say, I'm going to figure out when exactly this is on.
Thing.
Well, I'm trying to figure out what that would be. If that's the goal, we want it to be a live sporting event. If it's superstars, I might tune in. If you're just doing it for your Bleacher Report, House of Highlights, NBA Instagram, all of those things, if you're just trying to get viral dunks out there on Instagram, that's a perfectly reasonable marketing campaign. I just wonder what the goal of the NBA is. Is it to push it out for virality, like Bomani said? Are you doing it for Gen Z? Or are you trying to make it a live sporting event that people will tune in for? I really don't. That's a question that
probably both.
Sure, absolutely, yes. You would love to get both.
Preferences?
Yeah,
I would probably say live.
Historically, that's what you would say. I wonder if there's even a point where you say, hey, this dunk contest isn't going to be the live thing. Let's just make it a farm for a bunch of viral content so you can get a few of those dunks out there. I don't know, but for me to tune in for it live, maybe if it was Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, Chris Paul, Torrey Craig, just somebody like the league's best of the best.
You had me until you got to Chris Paul.
He could be a judge. That's fine with me. The Gorilla. Okay, now hold on, Beards. Mascot dunk contest.
No. Hear me out.
I'm hearing.
It's like the Masked Singer.
Oh!
But it's with mascot.
Yes! Beards, we did it! You did it!
Save the dunk contest.
You saved the dunk contest. It is NBA players in a costume of their choosing. They throw down a nasty slam in full costume, and you go over the judge table. They judge it, and they make a guess. You can get some hints. You make a guess over the course of the night. Whenever they properly identify the dunker, they're unmasked. Beards, I think you've done it.
I can't believe nobody's thought of this before.
Me neither, dude. That is incredible. What other sporting events can we save by just basically making it the Masked Singer? Home Run Derby, boom. Pro Bowl, done. All of the All-Star games around sports that are not quite good enough.
You want to say baseball?
Put them in costumes. I was going to say that, you know what, I'm going to go get a costume and then we'll keep doing the show on the other side of the break and see if it adds any intrigue, but I've done that at least 3 times.
We've got some fake mustaches down in the office. Did you grab one of those?
I've done that at least 4 times. I have definitely done radio in a Grinch costume, in a horse head, and in a penguin outfit. Minimum. I'm sure there have been some fake mustaches. And then more often than not, Lebo just considers my daily dress to be sort of a costume in its own right. Okay, wow. Well, I thought we'd get some more conversation out of this, but Beards went ahead and into the segment for us. NBA Dunk Contest Masked Singer crossover. You're welcome, Adam Silver.
Follow the show on Twitter at J810Anderson, at JB Briscoe, at Beards McFly, and at Sports Radio 810. You're in the zone.
I think that... Boring you, Beards?
Sorry. I had to yawn.
Yeah, we heard.
You can. There's a little off button.
No.
There's not a yawn button. There's a cough button, but there's not a yawn button.
There's an off button
on your mic.
With Jason Anderson.
Anyway, so Doug Marone.
You're supposed to yawn again, Beards.
Now we go live to Beards for his NBA season preview. Beards, go.
Timberwolves might not make the playoffs this year, guys.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
That's at least like 5 years old, right, Beards?
It's not a young liner.
That's a wet, wacky, wild Wednesday. Not a young liner. Boy, you could hear that yawn again. That however old that is, that yawn is preserved for history. That's beautiful. We got.
I think Timberwolves might not make the playoffs again this year.
Well, look, where are they right now?
Though.
They probably will, right?
They probably will.
See, look at that. We are in the future.
They might not.
They might not, but also they might. Got any more yawns to get out?
No, I think I'm okay for right now.
Don't yawn when Mick gets here. He will take it personally. We got a couple comments from Power Cat Ryan over on the 810 Twitch. First, I'm giving you guys a standing ovation for my cubicle. Thank you. Really, that's Beards'. The mascot, Masked Singer solution was his. And then also noting that EA Sports College Football had a mascot game mode, which I remember very well and would love to get more of, just like in sports in general. I know that Madden has its issues. I would like to play as 22 KC Wolves on both sides of the football.
Get a big head mode in every game.
Big head mode in every game, mascot mode in every game.
For baseball, though.
Big helmet mode also, you're fine. And now you're able to hit and pitch with Slugger? I just think we need more mascots. Our mascot, Mick Shaffer, joins us next. Is that offensive to Mick?
The Zone with Jason Anderson.
The more dead puppies there are in the world, the more that's going to dilute the cuteness of the puppies that we have right now. Less puppies means more cute, okay? They said it in Incredibles.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
No shortage of cuteness in the studio today. No, sir. Joshua Briscoe, Beards McFly with you as Mick Shaffer of KSHB 41 joins us to close out the show. What's up, Mick?
What's up, humans? How are you?
Doing pretty good. Had the door open earlier. It feels kind of like spring outside.
You know what? It is a great day today.
It's a beautiful day.
Took the dog on a walk today. We went farther than usual because it was a great day.
It's a great day to be outside.
My wife's golfing right now.
Wow.
Sorry, she's playing golf.
Well, what's the difference?
I feel like if you play a lot of golf, you say it's play golf. It's not golfing.
Ooh, I was thinking the other way around.
Nah,
I was thinking
you play golf.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, if you're...
I mean, like you play basketball, right? You're not basketballing.
I would say that I usually am basketballing by these new terms. Yeah. I can, we're
What'd you do yesterday,
in the
Josh?
gym.
We baseballed.
We baseballed a little bit. Went out and, we threw around the pigskin some. That's not very scientific. We were playing football.
Footballers.
You're right. Playing the sport. There's a more organized sort of methodology behind that.
They were playing football. She's playing golf. Not football right now, but so good day. Great day. This is my Monday.
Well, it's everyone's Monday.
Usually it's my Tuesday.
Got it. Okay, got it.
But hold on. I took yesterday off. I'm also taking Thursday off. So Wednesday's my Friday, so this could technically be my Wednesday.
So today's your hump day Monday.
Yeah.
A little Monday hump day.
My Monday and my hump day.
You mentioned as you were leaving the studio Friday, and then I was going through the mental gymnastics.
But usually my Wednesday's on my Tuesday.
Uh-huh.
So this is my Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
But Thursday you'll be off. So this could also potentially be the day before a Friday and the day after a Thursday, if you think about it.
It's really my Sunday, too, because a lot of days, most weeks, that's when I start my work week.
Have you seen the film Arrival?
No.
Beards, have you seen it?
Of course I have. I think
that's a film. There's a film that you've seen that I haven't?
Yeah. Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner. It's kind of a smart sci-fi kind of alien movie.
Okay.
I, at this point, would spoil it pretty heavily with the bit I was going to go for, but... there's a lot of talk of time and language. It's great. It was an Academy Award nominee when it came, but it's not super snobby. It's excellent. It's really, me and Beards both like it a lot. So that's got to mean something, right?
I love both Jeremy Renner and Amy Adams.
It's really,
I watched
really good.
Mayor of Kingstown last night, like 3 episodes. Jeremy Renner.
How is that? I mean, are you deep in it
fantastic
previously?
show.
I don't know that I have watched a lot of Jeremy Renner in anything other than Marvel movies, and he's fine.
Well, he's the worst Avenger ever, right?
It's right. It's
Hawkeye
a tough draw for him.
Is the worst. He's got his own series though of Hawkeye.
Did you watch the Hawkeye series?
Yeah, watch the one season.
I've
watched
the
one season. However many they have. The Hurt Locker, he was great in.
I never saw Hurt Locker.
Oh, that's Academy Award winner.
It certainly was. I remember all that. Just never saw it. Have you seen Quantumania yet? The new Ant-Man movie?
Last night, buddy.
Did you really?
Be in our LFB if we're doing an LFB today.
Okay. Well, we saw it on Thursday.
I was upset. Like at the end, they revealed that.
Spoiler alert.
Ant-Man is in the word Quantum Mania.
I know. Actually, you're right.
Why did I see that before?
I know. That I am 100% with you. This is a spoiler we should be able to give.
That separates them.
And then you can turn that into a little hash, into a U or whatever. Yeah, that. I wish they would have leaned more into that in the marketing.
Did you stick around for both end credit scenes?
This is not my first Marvel rodeo.
It was for people in our theater. Just right after they start leaving, I'm like, what are you doing?
Weird time for you to just
my
start
son already
seeing
told me
Marvel
that there's going to be
movies.
2 end credit scenes. And then like halfway through the credits, my daughter and I started pondering like how many people it takes to make a Marvel movie.
I know.
And she looked it up. You want to guess on average?
Beard, you're really
At
good.
least 6.
Yep. At least 6. You were right so far.
I'm going to say...
Everybody from actors to people on set to all the graphics.
I'm gonna say 500.
17,000.
No way. What? I thought I was undershooting. I didn't think I was undershooting it by
500. Give me a break.
a factor of.
That's probably a regular movie.
A bajillion. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
That's probably like a B movie.
Like the B movie.
Probably
Beards, look up how many people it took to make B movie, please. I don't know how you're gonna find it, but I need you to do that for us. It's really important. I had another Marvel. You really
That's why all the tickets are like
me,
$17 a pop.
Right.
All those people got to make money.
It's 1/10 of a cent per person.
Yes.
At $17 a pop.
I can tell you right now, it took 4 years and over 1 million man hours to animate the B movie, but I have not figured out anything else yet.
It took 4 years? Wow.
Worth every penny, worth every beat of
Supposedly
sweat.
it takes like one episode of Family Guy, like 18 months.
Really?
Yeah, from start to finish.
And
I feel like they're way more topical.
South
than
Park
that.
does it like on a weekly basis, right?
bet,
Hasn't that
yeah.
been their thing? I'm not the foremost expert
I remember
on all
that
those.
there
but-
was several years ago, they did the Washington Redskins episode.
Oh, yeah.
And they had put out a promo trailer for it, and I think Kirk Cousins was, or not Kirk Cousins, Robert Griffin was supposed to be the quarterback that started, and then he got injured between when they had shown the preview and then when the episode's coming out, so they scrambled and completely redid that thing and replaced it with who was going to be starting.
Wow. So the Kirk Cousins might have ended up being Kirk Cousins.
I don't
then.
remember
Alex
exactly what it
Smith.
might have been.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, with Marvel movies at this point though, I actually don't leave the theater until the next showing starts
We were
just to
talking
make
about
sure.
that. We're like, what's the next step? It's going to be like inside the next movie of A Man Called Otto. There's going to be an end credit scene for the Marvel movie we just watched.
Halfway through A Man Called Otto, Tom Hanks is watching a Marvel trailer on his phone. You're just looking over his shoulder, just watching.
My son
him
and I were
in a
joking about
bus.
that same thing. He was after the second one, which wasn't much of a trailer.
Yeah.
But he's like, Dad, what are you doing? There's more coming. He's like, you gotta wait for the next movie to start.
Yeah, the actual runtime of the whole thing is actually 4 days, but there's just they give you 10 seconds at a time.
So I'm reporting back here.
Yes, please.
Is
this B movie report?
Yes.
Okay, hold on. Sorry. Go ahead and hit the
Breaking
button. We have the imaging. We actually have the imaging for this. Go ahead.
B-movie update.
It's crazy that we've had that made for so many years, never had an excuse to use it. Go ahead.
Google says it took at least 6 people to make the B movie.
Yep.
B-movie update.
So I have a great B-movie story. Well, you'll be the judge of that. So
Did you hear Beards cackle through the glass? That's always a really rewarding moment.
Whenever my oldest, who's now 18, whenever he was like 3, we had I think we were driving a Ford Explorer, and it had the DVDs were the new thing in the back, the thing that popped down from the ceiling.
Yes.
So awesome. And so you put the DVD in and everything. Well, along with the DVD, he put like 76 cents into that slot where the DVD goes.
No.
And we couldn't get B-movie out. So we watched B-movie for 2.5 years, or they did, in the back. His little brother was brought into the world. He watched B-movie. I swear to God, have never seen B-movie, but I have it because I'm driving. I was driving the whole time, but I have it memorized.
You've heard it.
I have it memorized.
Times.
Yes.
There was I can't remember what it was. It was just like a thing I saw on Instagram or Twitter or somewhere. Some like niche little office space. They just had one of those LED light things you can have scrolling just, your hours or come in or whatever. And it was just scrolling the entire B-movie scripts 24/7, just beat by beat.
Love it.
There are so many YouTube videos that are B-movie, but every time they say the word B, it gets 20% faster. And then it's just... I don't know what it was that made B-movie such a cultural touchdown, but it is deep in my DNA.
76 cents is what it took.
I saw it
in our
on
car.
an airplane. Is how I.
Of course you
experienced
did.
The B movie.
Of course you did. It also is a great answer to the question of movies where the quote unquote bad guy is clearly in the right. Because the boyfriend in this movie is like slowly losing his mind.
Yes.
Because his girlfriend
He's talking to a
is
bee.
leaving him for a B.
I believe, is it the Seinfeld guy? Is it Putty? Is it the guy from Family Guy? I believe is the husband, or the boyfriend. Yeah, he's absolutely right.
Yeah, he's completely in the right here. This is not.
Well, that's like
this is not a healthy woman's decision here.
And no spoiler here. In Quantumania, I was ready to just I was ready to just muzzle the daughter. And I know she's supposed to be the hero and talk. Your dad saved the world. Yeah. He should be able to golf the rest of his life. You just got arrested. He bailed you out of jail, and you're preaching to him? Shut up, Cassie. Shut the hell up.
It's very early in the movie, so I feel like we can talk about this. It is literally, it's like, well, at least we're still doing something. He got really small and saved the multiverse. I mean, let's give him a couple of years to live. He wrote a book. He wrote a book. He just got done saving the world. I had a very busy week.
Everybody was siding with the bratty little daughter. I'm like, give me a break.
I had a busy week. So I slept for like 12 straight hours Saturday night to Sunday morning. And you know what?
You were a busy bee last week?
I was a busy bee. I was a little busy bee last week. And so if somebody would have woken me up, if Renee would have woken me up at 4 a.m. on Sunday morning and be like, hey, you're sorry, the dishes are still in the sink. I'd say, well, like, look, I just saved Kansas City. I've been doing the Lord's work this week. Could I get a full 8 hours? It's a great take, Mick. I was confused about the Venom being directed towards. Yeah. Like, imagine if real life Paul Rudd saved the world.
I told my kids on the drive home, like,
ever.
If you ever get arrested, you don't get to make any speech to me.
Yeah.
Right? You don't get to talk. You don't get to say words for at least 6 months.
Yeah, okay? You got to just eat that for a little bit. Especially if you would just save the world like one movie ago.
Yeah. And I'm not saving the world. I'm like gonna pay the mortgage. That's the biggest thing I'm gonna do for your life.
Saving their world.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? Oh, sorry, kids. You want to go and live in the quantum realm? I'm sure rent's cheaper in the quantum realm. If that's what you want, I'll just stay here, write my book, do some book readings, and eat Cheetos all day. I'm the reason that half of us aren't vapor. This is a great take.
He's the reason.
He really is. I don't think I knew that you were caught up throughout so much of the MCU.
I've seen them all. That's what I was like. I'm like, we're up to like upwards of 30 MCU movies now, and these people don't know to sit afterward and watch at least halfway through the credits.
It's unreal.
We had almost all of the theater leave after the first one, and then more people left after the second one. Or no.
We had some people who left before the yeah.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. It's like, hey guys, listen, there's gonna be more here. Look, you can find it online if you want, but I was in no hurry.
The real one stayed for the very, very end.
I ate such a big bucket of popcorn. You got to make sure there's not a third super secret one in the middle of A Man Called Otto. We've been over this. What's your MCU tolerance like right now? Like, how excited are you for new MCU things?
I've got takes on this.
Hit me.
So I love the overall theme of the MCU and the Marvel Universe, and that, like, okay, the strongest, baddest asses can also be the smartest people, right? They're always scientists, right? I love the science aspect about it because it unites jocks and nerds, right? It's what it does.
Great point.
I just feel like they've gotten really into the weeds with the whole multiverse. Every time, it's like every time I go to a casino, I have to relearn how to play craps. And this is like every time I MCU, I'm like, okay, multiverse. Let me think. Okay, it's not necessarily a different universe. It's a different a timeline, I think, where they had some sort of like sliding doors moment and all that. And okay, and often they'll show you the map of how it all works. I'm like, yeah, I think I understand this. I'm just, I hope I don't roll 7 or 11, right? And so I'm like, they're just always, that's a little too into the weeds. I'm like, can we just dial it back a little bit and find some sort of theme beyond saving the world? Just maybe just save a city or something like that, or maybe
your local shelter.
What's that?
Save your local shelter.
Yeah. Just something different. And then Quantumania had major Star Wars vibes to it.
It was absolutely
major
Marvel
Star Wars callbacks.
Yes.
I did like that it happened in the quantum world, and it wasn't New York buildings getting knocked down right and left like all these are. So I did like the environment. I thought it was a really good show. They rarely have bad shows. There's bad movies.
Very few stinkers out of the MCU. This one I'm not sure was a standout in terms of like it's setting up a lot, right? We'll see where it goes. There were some standout performances. I don't want to spoil too much, but it was a great way to eat a bucket of popcorn in a comfy chair. We were at the B&B theaters. It was a wonderful place to be.
So was I.
We went to the Overland Park one. The one in Shawnee, though,
But you
I've been
enjoyed
many
the
times.
magic of the movies.
I enjoyed the magic of the movies. You know I did. So I got the big, collectible bucket of popcorn. Renee and I plowed through that pretty quick and just watched basically Ant-Man and It was Paul Rudd in a Star Wars movie is more or less what it amounted
Basically.
to, which I would have gone to. If there was a movie called Paul Rudd in Star Wars, I would be there opening night because that's all good stuff. I'm with you, though. I think some of the TV shows have scaled down a little bit.
Part of it is like, okay,
it's just bigger and bigger and bigger.
Right. So it's multiverse. You can now go back in time. We've established that.
Yeah.
And then they don't always release these chronologically. I'm like, wait a second. She should be dead, right? Like the Guardians of the Galaxy lady is back for the next one.
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
Okay.
Spoiler right there.
All right.
And I'm like, wait, okay, this hasn't happened yet. Thor's timeline is a little ahead of this Avenger timeline, and just it's a little too into the weeds for me.
I think that becomes the issue of whenever you have had the last threat from the last phase of the MCU was half of not just the world is gone, half of the worlds are gone, right? Like we are cutting everything in half.
We're entering the new dynasty, the Kang dynasty here. They are
right, and
it's going to be the new bad guys, multiple.
And I like how that got set up in the TV shows. So I'm hopeful for that, but it is the entire fate of the universe, and now it's the entire fate of the multiverse, and now we're just sort of scaling and scaling, which is why, like, whenever Spider-Man got a little smaller, for a little bit, that really was like your local high school, and let's see what Tom Holland's doing, trying to figure out how to talk to this girl or whatever. It's kind of nice to.
I feel like Ant-Man should be bigger most of the time, or as much as possible.
I agree. This is a great take.
Why was he not bigger this entire time?
Also, it would be faster, right? Because he's moving.
It's like
more
he's underwater
slowly,
when he's running.
Right, but his strides are crazy. I mean, this feels like a huge advantage, or would be a huge advantage if he would just be huge more often.
Yeah.
Also, could be so good at sports.
That's the whole deal. Like,
think about that.
Yeah.
Think about an Avengers football league.
Well,
Can
and
we
it's
make
like
that happen?
every couple of years we have a new Spider-Man movie. He's still in high school, and he's still not going out for high school sports. Same with the Twilight movies. They're in high school, and they don't do sports.
It's a great point. We've talked about Incredibles many times. That's how this hour started, was in an old Incredibles conversation. But, like, you could be Peter Parker.
I feel like one of these
be a 4-star recruit, right?
Exactly. That'd be a great kind of storyline for at least one of these movies, right?
Yeah. Let Peter Parker try to walk that line to not use all of his Spidey sense. But, man, think about how good he'd be. Literally
He goes to Georgia
anything.
and he plays like 4 sports.
Oh, my goodness. Imagine Peter Parker's slot receiver. It's like, well, it just seems like he never gets hit. Yeah, it's because the Spidey sense kicks in right before he gets decleated by some Alabama linebacker. I now want this movie so badly.
But
that
it
I
ends
don't know
like
what to do
Teen
with
Wolf, to
myself.
where, like, you know what? I've lost my powers. I'm not going to use them to win the college football playoff.
Exactly. And then he goes out there, and then
like
one of
Teen
those
Wolf.
Alabama linebackers kills him on the field because he's still Tom Holland. I think that could work. Should we just take a break now, Beards? I wanted to ask Mick about some basketball things. We got some LFB still to go, and we can cover a whole bunch of that. The one thing we can't cover is the fact that there's got a little rumbling in my tumbling, and I'd love to do something about it.
Why aren't we there?
Just wish I had an idea. What if we were where? Oh, if we were at the Atomic Cowboy Sports Salute.
Jason isn't here. We can make our own rules. We could have been there.
We really should. I mean, Beards could have. Again, it would get crueler and crueler for Beards.
I blame
but
Beards.
I'm sure they would accommodate us out there. And if you don't need to be doing a radio show right now, just wherever you're driving to, just go ahead and redirect to 42nd in Pennsylvania and Westport. It's Atomic Cowboy Sports Saloon. Here's the deal, everybody. We've talked about them a good amount now, so you should know this. They got 2-story biscuit sandwiches from the Denver Biscuit Company all morning, and they don't tell me to say this, so like don't tell them I told you this, but they'll change your life, okay? It's just, I believe that to be true. New York-style hand-tossed pizza all afternoon and evening from Fat Soli's. 20 beers on tap all the time. You can experience it today at 42nd in Pennsylvania in Westport. I'm a huge fan. The only thing about Atomic Cowboy I don't like is reminding myself that I'm not currently there. But on the plus side, we're here with Mick Shaffer of KSHB 41. More Zone next.
Follow the show on Twitter at J810Anderson, at JB Briscoe, at Beards McFly, and at Sports Radio 810. You're in the zone.
Nonstop. Right hand, left hand, nonstop, Josh.
With Jason Anderson.
At the time, it is the only thing I want to do.
Yeah.
The next day, I 100% regret it every time.
Yeah.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
The Mick Shaffer experience is always something. He's with us now from KSHB 41. Do I need to introduce you every segment when you're here? You're here more often than you're not in terms of days of the week.
Like anything, I should introduce you.
Yeah. Do you want to switch chairs for the last segment today? All right, we'll do that. We'll switch that up to wrap things up today.
We switching chairs or locations too?
Both. Yeah, sorry. That's a I can't remember. I learned in an English class once what it is to say like boots on the ground. You know, the boots on the ground means soldiers on the ground or people on the ground. It's not literally just the boots. And then the inverse is true. You can say touchdown Kansas City. Well, the city didn't score the touchdown, but the Chiefs did. Both of those terms have words that I've forgotten since college. But yeah, we'll switch chairs and locations and mic covers and microphones. But I think that would be fitting. I don't know. How big is your head?
I don't know. I'm a snapback guy.
I can almost... Usually I can be a snapback guy if I can get back just to the last two little snaps. But I'm wearing a fitted Suns hat right now that's...
don't...
7 3/4.
No thanks on fitted.
Yeah.
They're more expensive, and if your hair's too long, they're tighter, give you a headache, and they don't fit my head well.
Yeah. No, I think snapbacks are usually a good way to go, but I've crammed my head into this one because my team pride is just so important to
I like
show.
that hat.
I do too. It's a
Can't tell if that's old school or just new school trying to be old school.
little bit of both, probably more the latter. It's the real old logo, but, I bought it on the internet
recently,
so a few years ago. So, yeah. I bought it before the Suns had Kevin Durant, though, so, I bought it before the Western Conference Finals.
How's that going? Has he played for him yet?
He hasn't played for them yet. I saw clips of him practicing, though, just a little bit ago, so I don't know. Beards, if he's going to be back after the All-Star break? I haven't seen anything definitive yet,
I don't know for
but
sure.
He'll be back soon. That's something we could learn shortly, but I haven't learned it yet, so it can't be here for our Learn Funniest Best. I will never remember the order that we're supposed to go in, but I imagine we all learned something, laughed at something, and enjoyed something this week.
He is
this
technically
weekend.
day-to-day. So he's never going to play.
Beards, no. Don't say those words. Let's figure out what we learned, what we laughed at, and what was the best of the weekend. I don't remember.
First.
Do I
You
go
first?
first?
Yeah.
Here's what I learned this weekend. I learned that the XFL is off to a nice start. Look, is it absolutely NFL football right now? No.
My Sea Dragons aren't off to a good start, I'll tell you what.
I am sorry for that fact. That's disappointing. But I tuned in for a good chunk of the San Antonio Brahmas versus the St. Louis Battlehawks.
You did?
I really did. I watched most of the second half. And then at the end, A.J. McCarron led a miraculous drive. They scored a touchdown to get it within field goal range, to get it within a field goal. Then they did their 4th and 15 conversion instead of the onside kick back at, I think, their own 25. They convert on that play. They drive down the field. They score a touchdown, and they win in regulation. I think that's what happened. It was a little foggy now that I say it all that definitively. But it was fun. It was quick pace. There weren't as many commercials. They have a few interesting things. The extra point is either a 1 point, a 2 point, or a 3 point offensive play from various distances. There's no kicking option. I think it might help me scratch my football itch for a little while.
I have no football itch,
and I have a perpetual football itch. I've mentioned it to doctors; they have no solution. I've mentioned it to I've mentioned it to
problem, it's in a bad spot on your
and
back. You always need somebody to get it for you.
I do, and yesterday that was AJ McCarron. He came over and he went, "Don't even worry about it, man." So thank you, AJ McCarron. I learned that the XFL is off to a nice start. I also learned that the XFL, the back of their jerseys above their nameplate, instead of like the XFL logo, it's the Rocks logo. It's the little like cow skull,
right, that cow
head
skull.
kind of thing.
Yep. I like that logo.
On the back of all the XFL jerseys, just continuing to wipe away the memory of Vern McMursh, as Beards called him so many years ago, and now it's the Rocks League. I thought it was fun.
I love football. It's my favorite sport. I'm good with an off season. I don't need it year round.
I understand.
The off season makes me love it more. Like, okay, July comes around, I'm like, okay, I'm ready for football.
I'm
ready for football to be done.
I think June. I don't know when the XFL season ends, but I think
Nobody
just
does.
a month away from the sport,
Until
and
they lose all their money.
I'm in withdrawals. It's not
Yeah,
this
they
time.
won't be
Beards.
back next year.
No, this time they're back for real, guys. No, this is going to be the spin-off league that makes it, for sure.
For sure.
Mick, what'd you learn?
I learned that Nirvana once played at the Outhouse in Lawrence.
Huh? I didn't know that.
You know both of those things, right? Nirvana
I do know both
and
of
the
those
Outhouse.
things. I've never been to the Outhouse in Lawrence, but
oh boy,
seems like a good time. Based on
Buckle
the way
up,
you
buddy.
just said it. Okay.
Had my car broken into there. Been to a couple bachelor parties there. It's an experience. But I learned that in 1989, Nirvana played at the Outhouse. Back when I went in the late 90s, I don't believe they had bands playing there. At least they didn't have many. There were no bands playing there when I went there. There were no musical instruments.
On their Yelp page, it's listed as adult entertainment. So maybe this isn't exactly what I thought it was. And so
Strip club.
Okay, got it. Why was Nirvana there?
Playing a set.
Why did you learn about Nirvana being there? You were back at the Outhouse.
A buddy
and you
told
saw, like,
me,
a
and then I
poster on the
looked it
wall?
up, and it's common knowledge
Notable
on the internet.
performers here. Yeah, we've got. I spelled Nirvana wrong, but I see it here now. Can't read the name of that one. Pantera.
Oh yeah.
The Offspring.
Those are
Can't read
Outhouse
that one.
type bands.
Probably can't read that one.
Good self-edit.
Might be able to read that one. Not sure. Tool.
Usually a lot of tools there.
You can say Tool on the radio.
Read that one. Just trying to see if there's one more that either definitely. Mick, you had to be a big fan of the Jesus Lizard.
I think I've heard of that. But yeah, the dancing that was going on there when I was there wasn't like dancing to music.
It wasn't.
Well, it was dancing to music. It wasn't like headbanging.
It wasn't a mosh pit.
Maybe some headbanging.
Well, there might have been some. Maybe there was some moshing. Beards, what'd you learn?
I learned that Victor Wembanyama needs to move on over. There is a new international prospect that we're going to salivate over. Okay. His name, I am butchering this, I'm sure, is Mohamedou Landour. He plays for FC Barcelona. He is 13 years old. He is 6'9".
Oh, I saw this guy.
And he had a box score of 56 points and 33 rebounds over the weekend.
Was he playing against other 13-year-olds, or was he like...
It was the under-14 tournament, so yeah.
One more time on the box score?
56 points, 33 rebounds, 21 of 29 from the field.
It's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
If it only takes 29 shots to get 56 points, it's good.
That's pretty efficient. Did he take any threes, Beards?
I don't know.
Do you have any?
I do not have that.
What was his plus minus?
Plus a lot.
Any advanced stats for this
At
kid?
least plus 6.
Okay, very good.
I'm guessing he did hit some threes. I'm guessing he didn't hit 14 free throws. Maybe he's a great free throw shooter.
That seems unlikely. You keep digging, Beards, because I'd like to know who's going to be the number 1 overall pick in 5 years, 6 years, something like that.
28.
Also, one thing to think about that's just very funny: if he is done growing, we are never going to hear his name again. If he's never taller, you say he's 6'9"?
He's 6'9".
Nice. If he never hits Wembanyama height,
how tall is this
50
Wembanyama
rebounds.
guy?
He was 14 of 24 from the free throw line. He also had 5 blocks, drew 14 fouls.
How tall is Wemby?
It depends on what day you ask. I think right now he's about 7'4", 7'5".
Jeez.
Give it a month and he might be.
Who does he play for?
He's with
the Met 90.
And he's supposed to be in this year's draft?
He will be. Yes, he will be.
He's the giant French kid.
Yeah.
That is also about rail thin.
Yeah, he's a giant French guy who looks like he's made out of giant French fries. Like he is not a thick fella, but you get him on a little NBA weight plan.
He is not a steak cut fry.
No. We're talking McDonald's.
No, I was going to say he's like a steak and shake French fry.
He's like a shoestring
fry. He makes
fry.
Chet Holmgren look like a short fatty.
Well, those guys could arm wrestle for a while, I imagine. It would really be a leverage game.
Metropolitan 92 is Wemby's team.
One of my favorites.
I'm more of an 89 guy, but to each his own.
I like the 80 the Met 82s, I call them. What was the funniest from your weekend, Mick?
It's a Dairy Queen with my kids. My daughter really funny, but it's more of a proud moment. She ordered a cheeseburger. She said, I want a cheeseburger with only ketchup. And she paused, but then also still cheese. I'm like, yes, that's how you have to order it, okay? You get burned once. I don't know if she's been burned, but I've got burned.
Yeah.
But you just assume
Can't do it.
that cheeseburger, I always go cheeseburger, only mustard and pickle. There's going to be some back there, well, you know, mustard and pickle.
Only
So I
mustard
always say cheese as well.
You can't
That's
take
how
that risk.
you have to order it.
Leave no doubt.
Leave no doubt.
You must say, if you want to say, and also I do want the bread and the meat
Yes.
and the cheese and the ketchup. Sometimes you got to say
Doesn't
stuff
hurt.
like that.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Doesn't hurt to say bread as well.
They take a lot of orders. Those headsets are on for a long time. You spell it out. It's okay.
Don't be a D about it because
No.
they can always spit in your food.
Always. I worked at Chick-fil-A for about a year and a
They
half.
won't spit in your food.
I don't think I
They're
let
so
a,
nice they will let you spit in their food.
I don't think I let a bag go by without spitting in it. I was dehydrated working at Chick-fil-A. No, you're right. Chick-fil-A will let you.
As the mascot.
That's right. I did get to be the mascot a couple of times. You're right.
You're the chicken?
I was the cow, Mick.
that's
it's
right.
a cow. Urging you to eat more chicken.
I will. Don't worry.
Yeah, and you were our favorite customer, Beards, because it was just like, eat more chicken.
I
You
don't
were
think
like,
I've actually ever been to Chick-fil-A before.
ever?
What the
What?
hell?
I don't think so.
Wrong
How does
with
that
you?
happen?
I don't know.
Why?
I don't know. I
He
just
only
haven't.
eats
Somebody
chicken
hurt
on
you?
Sundays.
Yeah.
It's the only
It's
time.
the religion he has is all I said. So wait, have you been to the other big ones like Whataburger?
Yeah.
Don't say yeah. Like
Yeah,
it's
we went
obvious.
a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, but no, he does this.
Right?
He does it. He's like, no, I just don't think I've ever seen the color purple. Not the movie, but like the color. And it's like, what? What do you mean?
Have you seen
Like-
blue? Well, of course I've seen blue.
It's like, well, hold on.
blue and
Have you
red make
seen
purple.
red? It's like, yeah.
You put them together?
So, well, yeah, it's blue-red. No, what? How does this happen?
Have you been to Wahlburgers?
Yes, I have.
And you haven't been to Chick-fil-A?
No.
That's a strange one, Beards. You're a big chicken guy. We've talked about chicken a lot.
Yeah.
I don't
We
think
have.
I've ever heard
Have
you
you been to
say-
Zaxby's?
Yes, and it's just fine.
Have you been to Cane's?
It's excellent.
See, I'm the opposite there. Have you been to all the chicken places, but not Chick-fil-A?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
It's a weird one.
I don't know.
You got to at least get the data point.
That's
If
been like
you're
I've
gonna
been
get
to all
your
the state
favorite, that's
capitals,
fine.
but not Topeka.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think there was just everyone around me.
Have you ever been to Topeka?
Yeah, a couple times.
Okay. It's a Chick-fil-A there, I think, probably. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
It's the best chicken place.
I don't see that. I don't know that I'm with you on being the best chicken place,
although,
but you got to try.
I mean,
it.
the Popeyes chicken sandwich is like twice the size of Chick-fil-A. I get done with Chick-fil-A, I'm like, God, I want to go get two more.
I know.
I'm a slim chicken
I get
person.
3/4 of the way done with Popeyes. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have a tough time pushing this biscuit down my mouth.
Yeah, go ahead, Beards. I mean, all three of us just looked at each other just then, like, well,
I don't even know what sort of like innuendo that.
I don't know
refers to.
Don't
either.
worry. It'll sound great out of context.
Okay, good.
it just sounds like, well, yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I want a good fried chicken sandwich. I want that last bite for me to have to go like,
Right.
all right, and
Yep.
then I want that feeling. If I've eaten a fried chicken sandwich and at the end I'm like, I could have another one. It hasn't done its job.
That's
Popeye's
like
spicy chicken sandwich. Regular one's good too.
Similar to Shake Shack to me. Like I'll finish that burger. I'm like, it goes so quick. I'm like, I need two more, but they're $18 a piece.
Right. Yep. And at that point, it's too late. You've made your
That's
bet.
why I like Whataburger. They're bigger.
I gotta hit Whataburger again soon. It's been a minute since I've been. I don't actually.
I think
people brought
finally
it- they
the
brought it
lines
here.
after 8
Yes.
months have
Yeah, no joke.
calmed down.
No joke.
I drove by that one over there recently, and I did exactly like, oh, there's a couple cars
You
that
should
drive
see-
through.
I mean,
Not a million.
we stay next to an In-N-Out Burger in Tempe. Morning, noon, and night. I mean, we went by there at 8 a.m., at 2 p.m., at 12 p.m. Line around the corner.
So it really wasn't In and Out.
No, it's
It's
not.
the
That's an
biggest false
ironic
marketing.
name.
Yeah, that's a great point.
It does take a while.
Well, Beards, wait until you figure out how many guys it takes to make burgers down the street.
At least 5.
Way more than 5. False advertising. Beards, what was your funniest?
My funniest was during the 3-point contest over the weekend. Jason Tatum, I think he probably thought somebody was running out to play defense because he pump faked a 3-pointer. He didn't move on.
That's cute. You watch that.
I just saw the clip.
My
later.
son went off last night that Tatum had 55. Was that right?
Yeah, he did.
He said that's the
MVP.
most ever. I'm like, they usually score almost 200 points apiece. How's nobody scored 55 points in a game?
Is that right, Beards?
I thought that Anthony Davis had set like 60 or something ridiculous.
He said it, and I saw it online that was the highest scoring output ever in an NBA All-Star game.
Great, another non-championship for Beards.
And I can see it, I guess, because is there 15 guys on both sides to play?
Okay, yeah.
If there's 15 guys on both sides got to play, I get it. Maybe you're not getting the minutes you need.
There's 12 on each side, and some guys won't play it too much, but it's pretty split for the most part, minutes, I think.
They just wanted to give Jason Tatum some hardware, and so that was a way to do it, I guess. So, Beards, congrats on your championship, I guess.
Until he gets Finals MVP this year.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely going to
happen. Those are the teams that lose.
Something in there.
Beards, would you rather have a Celtics championship, but Jason Tatum is terrible in the series, Marcus Smart carries the team throughout the series, or Jason Tatum is the MVP in a losing effort?
Oh.
Marcus Smart time, baby.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Go Pokes.
I just wanted to make sure. Oh, that's true. You have Marcus Smart on your side.
So, yeah, my son is as big of a Celtics fan as Beards. Like the Eastern Conference Finals last year when they almost lost and then they won. It was the greatest moment of his life, and mine too, because I thought he was.
Round two, let me tell you.
Yeah, he was gonna light the house on fire, and then I think he actually tried to in the finals.
My funniest, I mentioned earlier, I've actually mentioned it at least twice in this show already. It is Christian and Scooby. They were the halftime performers at the KU-TCU game. They were, I think, won Germany's Got Talent and were finalists in America's Got Talent.
Are these like mascots? Are they in some sort of mascot uniform? Or are they just people?
No, unfortunately, it's a person, but on the plus side, a very small dog. So
Scooby's the dog.
Scooby's the dog, believe it or not. It's actually, no, Scooby's the guy. And the dog was just basically doing little tricks. This guy's doing balancing acts. He's on a couple of posts and he's standing on his hands or whatever. He's balancing on a basketball, and then this little dog comes out of its box, and the dog is now balancing on the guy's feet while he's doing handstands. The dog then goes over and balances on a basketball, rolls over, hops onto another basketball. It was an incredible performance of athleticism, and I still maintain saved KU's season. First half of that game, no energy, all Baylor all the time. Tale of two halves. What happened between the halves? This little dog was dancing on a basketball. This dog deserves a ring if they win the conference.
Compare to Red Panda?
Well, Red Panda's not literally Red Panda. So for me, I give advantage dog.
But that's not literally Scooby-Doo.
No, exactly.
But it's a dog. But it is a dog.
Why are those the rules? It's got to be literally your title.
No. It's not about the literalness. It's about I'm saying advantage paws. So, advantage non-humans.
So that was more impressive than Red Panda.
Yes,
wow.
Yes, because it was a dog doing it. The dog's part.
So
was
you
more
underestimate
impressive.
dogs then? Apparently, you don't think dogs can do what we do?
No,
I'm all for dogs' rights. I didn't know you discriminated like that.
I am so aggressively pro-dog that anything a dog does is more impressive than anything a person does. That's where I'm at. I'm kind of a dog radical in that way.
Yeah, you know what? I already have them up on a pedestal. I don't have low expectations for them.
I would like to see a red panda riding a unicycle. That to me is
I'd
my
like
peak.
to see that dog on a damn unicycle.
Well, let's make sure red pandas aren't extinct.
They're
not extinct. I've seen them.
A red panda?
Red pandas aren't extinct. They look like little raccoons. Basically.
They live in cartoons, right?
They're like shiny raccoons, Beards, like in the Pokemon sense.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Gotta catch them all.
Gotta catch them all. God, I wish Patrick Mahomes would have thrown that pass to Andrew Wiley.
He got it intercepted.
Beards, what's your best?
I got a text message yesterday, I believe, from one Joshua Briscoe saying that our Charlie Hustle hoodies that we ordered from the Super Bowl championship are in.
Yeah.
I do not have them in my hand yet, nor is it
on
me.
They're in my car.
Yeah.
Was I included in this one?
You were. Here's the thing.
Am I just including the bets I can lose?
Well, they weren't. Nobody won or lost on them. We just went in for one shipment. Make sure we get that free shipping. You weren't here. You were in Arizona. You might have been busy.
Jason was in Arizona. Did you reach out to him?
No.
It's just supposed to be
well, it's true. There's no way for you to communicate to people.
It was just
states away.
me, Beards, and Dylan were all on the same page because we were all here for
Dylan
the post-game
gets
show.
one.
Well, here's the thing.
I've seen how you look at him.
Well, listen. I mean, you've seen him. Look at that hair.
Great.
Come on. You slipped me a certain amount of money right now, though, and we're going to say Dylan's got lost in shipping and handling, okay? And I've got an extra large in the car with your name on it.
I got 3 George Washingtons with your name on it.
Look at that. That's not very
3
much.
of them.
Not very much money. My favorite president was Benjamin Franklin, just so you know that. But
Oh, I got a $5 bill. That's fine.
don't think he's on the. My best is I've again also talked about this plenty. Legitimately, hadn't been in Allen Fieldhouse in at least a couple of years, probably pre-pandemic because I can't remember going there post-pandemic at any point. It was electric. Not just the dog, but the first half energy getting very bad, the second half being just the Allen Fieldhouse avalanche of KU's back, and it took 5 minutes, and it felt like that game was over in the complete opposite direction of how the entire first half felt. It was just really good to be back out there. It's just, I don't have a joke or anything. It's kind of earnest that sports are good, and Allen Fieldhouse is a good place to watch basketball. Mick, what's your best?
It's not bad, absolutely. So Gary Lezak put out a compilation. He didn't put it together, but some brilliant person did, of about 5 or 6 minutes of all the preseason predictions, not just Bart Scott, although Bart Scott has a leading role in this, but from ESPN to NFL Network to podcasts of people, I mean, just not only not picking the Chiefs to win the AFC West, but like picking them to lose it. Picking the Raiders. A lot of the Raiders. It's so a lot of the hate as a Chiefs fan in mind, like, okay, did I manifest some of that? Did I hear it maybe once and think it happened 100 times? No, it happened 100 times. And I love people who are just really confident in crap they don't know about on future stuff. And I get it. It's part of the job. Sure. It's part of your job. Yeah. But then when you're really confident in something and you treat other people like idiots for thinking the opposite of you, and then your crap doesn't happen, I like that. I liked that compilation of a throwback to the offseason.
Have you physically and emotionally recovered from the parade at this point?
I have no emotions, so yeah. Okay. Physically, no. I could sleep 14 hours a night. I like a sleep bank. I still gotta pay back all those days, so I could go to sleep right now and wake up on Thursday. But hold on, this is my Wednesday. And Thursday would actually be my Saturday, since that's the first day I'm gonna have off.
Let's take a break. More Zone next.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing to The Zone wherever you get your podcasts. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
I'm good at enjoying myself.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Welcome back to The Zone here on a Monday or a Sunday or a Wednesday or a Thursday, maybe a day that hasn't been invented yet. Are we done inventing days?
Huh.
We just said 7?
That's a great question, Mick.
Even though it doesn't exactly go into 365 days a year. We don't always have 365 days
well, that's why we have to
in
make
a year.
Up a day
yeah.
every 4 years.
Yeah, no, I've heard of that. February 29th.
Why don't we go ahead and standardize it? We sprinkle in a couple of flex days, and those just days that, hey, no one is allowed to work.
Purge days.
Well,
talked about this. I'm not gonna kill anybody. I'm gonna do my taxes on Purge Day. That's the law I want to break, boys.
All crime is legal on Purge Day,
yes.
And Purge Day is the day between March and April.
It's right. What's that on Parks and Rec? When she schedules, April schedules all of Ron's appointments on March 31st because she didn't think that was a real day.
A great bit, and that it is. Maybe we rebrand it. It's sort of the Day of Reckoning.
Day of Reckoning. I'm gonna hide out on a rooftop so I don't get murdered.
Yeah,
and hopefully I have good.
Rooftop is scary.
Well, hopefully I have good Wi-Fi, and I'll do my taxes up there, and we'll be good.
Do we think that if we tried, because my first inclination is, could we get to a purge where we're not doing the really bad stuff? Because we don't need to be cleaning up, for days after the fact.
What would be the worst thing you would be allowed to do on your purge day?
So that's a great question.
That's why I asked it.
For me, it would be eat carbohydrates. But that's
it's
really
not against the law.
For me, okay, so for me, I would steal a tanker truck full of insulin. Is what I would do. Okay. Personally.
Would you
like a jet? I would like a jet pack
full of money.
I honestly think
you
if you see how expensive insulin is,
on the other days.
Yeah, I could sell insulin then on the.
That's right.
I've got an insulin black market now. All of a sudden, I'm changing my name to Eli Lilly. This is all my insulin now. Beards? What's the worst thing you would do on a purge day?
Eat more chicken.
And that's not illegal though. Mick's making a great point.
Theft would be the most. I'd feel bad. I'd feel bad the other days.
Steal money, buy more chicken.
Steal money from somebody who is a bad person, but then I feel like that bad person is going to have a lot of henchmen right there, and if you think it out, it's probably not worth it, and they're allowed to murder me on that day.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, Robin Hooding on the Purge Day is a really dangerous game.
Yeah. Basically, the safe it's going to be is just going steal from an old lady, and you don't want to do that. You're going to feel bad.
You're going to feel bad about that.
That old lady's got a sawed-off shotgun in her purse.
That's the whole thing about the Purge movies. I'm like, why do 90% of the population just want to murder? Why is that an impulse?
Yeah. I don't have a murder impulse. I really don't. Other than Jason sometimes. But it's really just him.
That makes sense. Like at the end of the shows when he's just talking and talking and talking.
Anything else you want to get off your chest in the big chair, Mick?
No, this is nice. I'm just kind of riding low here as well. I gotta see Beards. I feel bad. I have my back to Beards all the time, and
you can see yourself up there in our monitor. It's like being on TV.
Yeah.
Do you like seeing your own face?
Fat neck.
It's a forgiving angle though, from up down.
Yeah, it's better than having it low. Are you zooming in?
That's the shit.
God, your mom and my dad watching this.
At least we got 2.
You're going to hate it. Hey, we'll see you next time on The Zone with whoever's hosting. I won't be here. It's fine.